Sairam,
Sairam.
are we offering my most humble salutations at the lotus feet of Swami. It is the wonderful to see that already we are virtually at Prashant Nilayam. So in this discussion, in this update, we are going to talk about the coming up centennial celebrations of Swami, which is coming in 2025, that is 100 years of divine love, and also the our Parthi Pilligrimage. From now on, the Satyasai Global Council will be planning the trips to Prashantrilayam. The groups can, plan the trips, and we also got the like information, Prashanti, that if you can register at your centers, that as a group you are going to Puttaparthi for such and such time, so they can help you with all the accommodation or other, so that groups can stay, safely in Prashanti Nilayam. Having said that, we want to take you into this discussion, like for the centennial celebrations in 2025, we'll be going to Prashanti Nilayam as a pilgrimage, So pilgrimage, the first time the pilgrimage idea comes from, this is the way I was reading Chosen Mother Ishwarama, the book written by none other than Kasturiji. In that, there is a beautiful incident when Swami was moving from Patha Mandiram to the new Mandir, which is Sai Kulwanthal nowadays. There was an old Mandir which is in the village, and Swami was trying to construct the new Mandir and trying to move there. That is the time Mother Ishwarama comes to know that Swami is moving again, because as a child she didn't want him to move anywhere. That's why she also took promise from Swami that he won't move from Puttaparthi. So Ishwarama comes to Swami and says, which God-forsaken place you have found now? Because Swami wants to construct a new mandir a mile away from the village under the hill, which is right now the Prashant Nilayam. There also beautifully she asks, don't you know that you must consult astrologers before you think of moving anywhere? Can you imagine? Swami, as a motherly love, comes and says, for which, Swami answers, this is the new mandir, finally became like this and finally became our Sai Kulwanthal. Then Swami smilingly replied to the mother. She says, there will be no jungle, no snakes when I set my foot there. Instead, there will be hundreds of pilgrims pouring in every day. This place will become like Shirdi, Tirupati and Kasi. That is the time pilgrims word comes from Swami. So we thought we should plan for this 100 years of divine love, and for Swami's birthday in 2025, we should plan a national pilgrimage or a zonal pilgrimage to get together with Canada and West Indies also. And meanwhile, small pilgrimages on 2022, 23, 24 also possible. We all need to come together and plan. The planning is, starting of that pilgrimage update is this meeting is all for. Also, Satyasai Avatar, very few people realized very early. Some of these Veda Pandits like Gandikota Subramanya Shastri Garu, everybody knows about him because he's the one who gave us the Sai Gayatri. Swami blessed him with that, and we all chanting every day. He beautifully says at one place, Sasyavatare Virate Pravruddam Kalim Vijetum Unaragataya Sri Krishna Devaya Jagatitaya Sri Satya Sai Bhagavan Namaste, saying that you are the same Krishna, oh Lord Sai, you came down to take care of all the Kali effects. These are the people who realized Swami's avatar. And also there is another wonderful way the Pandit Sri Brahmasri Cherukumalli Kamavadani Garu served Swami. Amazing thing about him is he came only once to Puttaparthi and he never entered his house again back. Can you imagine that kind of devotion these devotees had? And he beautifully says, Tretayam Ramarupena Krishna Rupena Dvapare Kalim Satyasainam Jato Vishnur Mahetave, saying that Swami, you are the same Vishnu who came as Rama, who came as Krishna, who came as Satya Sai. So it is our duty, it is our, opportunity, go to Puttaparthi and, have the pilgrimage together in unity from here. With this, I will ask my team to present some of the pilgrimage ideas. This is still initial discussion. We will involve all of you, all the centers, all the members in unity and following spiritual practices of all the sadhanas, and we will go to Puttaparthi. Over to Brother Durjiti.
Sairam. Sairam, as Balu mentioned, we are in the early stages of planning, mostly brainstorming really at this stage. So thought we'll capture some of these ideas under 3 different categories. And pilgrimage, as I think we all know the significance of pilgrimage, but there are 3 essential components, at least from one way to look at it, is the preparation as we start going towards the, our objective here. And then to continue for the years, we'll look for the inspiration that will keep us up over the years. And then lastly, it's a celebration and also expression of our gratitude to Bhagavan's lotus feet. So with that, as a rough categorization, here's some ideas that we wanted to present. So let me share my screen. Hope you can see my screen. So as preparation, I think this is really, it depends on each one of us in terms of how we prepare. And this is really, it's between each devotee and Swami. So one component is individual sadhana for all of us. And recently, as some of you may have seen, we've launched a 1008 day sadhana program. This was put together by Brother Sai Kishore from Flushing, New York Sai Center. It's a wonderful, program that he, orchestrated, and I'll have him actually talk a little bit more about that at the end of my short presentation here. And the second component would be to look at group sadhana, where we at local centers we can think about how we prepare on a regular frequency, what kind of group activities that we could do in each of our centers. And the third, at this stage at least, the third aspect is the study circles on specific themes. As we start preparing towards, the Centennial Birthday, we can identify, some themes that we could all, across the, United States, on all the pilgrims, we can all be looking at doing this. I think some of this, because of the time that we are starting to work on this, they will be life-changing, because once you start doing some of this sadhana, honestly, I think it's this effect of preparation and the sadhana that we would do will go way beyond the pilgrimage itself. And no question that pilgrimage itself is a great activity, because we would be celebrating Swami's, Swami's grace on each and every one of our lives and families. So the second part will be inspiration. And here we're thinking about, workshops on variety of topics of relevance. I mean, obviously, these are all going to be spiritual topics. So we'll start looking into what kind of workshops we could have, bring in experts, and bring in some of the, senior devotees who have had the, wonderful opportunity to have seen Swami. As we've seen with, Brother Nimesh Mehta's, Sir Nimesh Pandya's and Sister Kamala Pandya's talks yesterday. We have also today's Brother Sai Suryanath's talk. They bring in so much of messages through their experience with Swami. So that's a big topic of interest to bring in some of those guests on a regular basis. Then we'll also look at multi-faith meetings. I mean, Swami's organization is equality by inclusion. So our objective and our command from Bhagavan is to have the, all the faiths, reach Swami and support that. And special music programs, our young adults and adults have so much talent within our region, within our regions, and within our zone. We can have them take lead, compose songs, compose group songs. I mean, there is no end to the creativity that we have access to within our own, centers across this country. And there is also, some proposals of Atirtra Mahayajnam from some centers. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So any activities such as those of spiritual significance from any faith, we could actually, do that to inspire each other. So that would be another aspect of the inspiration. And lastly, celebration and gratitude. This is the culmination of our years of sadhana, years of preparation, and actually our lifetime of gratitude that we would like to express to Bhagavan at Puttaparthi. And this is really the objective of this, the theme, also the pathway to Prashanti. And the pathway to Prashanti culminates in each of us making that physical journey to Prashanti, to Swami's Sannidhi. And that, I think, there's no better fruit for a sadhana of that sort. And again, it's not that we're reinventing anything here. The only reinvention here is ourselves. We are going to reinvent ourselves as a devotee, as a practicing sadhaka, to benefit from Swami's presence on this earth for everybody, but also in our own lives. That is really the objective here. And, as Brother Balu just mentioned, we would have a lot more conversations on this, a lot more discussions, and we can talk about that. I'm going to request Brother Sai Kishore to briefly talk about this 1008-day sadhana. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. He devised it in such a way that it can be used by any age group, any background, and any type of your work weeks or your daily life. So, Brother Sai Kishore, on to you.
Sairam everyone, thank you for this opportunity. I will try to keep it very quick. Let me share the screen. So this particular website, if you go to our main website SSSGC-USA.org, and then you have the link to the 1008 Days of Sadhana program. It's a self-explanatory website that was created. So if you spend about 2 to 3 minutes of your time going through the website, you can understand. I'll try to keep it short in about 1 minute or 2 minutes. Swami says the purpose of life is to know oneself. So that's the ultimate goal. What all we do here doesn't matter. Ultimately, the goal is for us to realize why we are here, what is our purpose. And for that, what we are looking at is pretty simple. We are looking for a commitment between you and Swami only, not us or anybody else. And then you need to understand what are the different tools that Bhagavan has given to all of us, right? So quickly, if you go to the website under the understand activities, there is an opportunity for you to click, and then that will lead to a dedicated page where we have catered to the needs of different aspects that Bhagavan has given to us. So many of us have different preferences. So to your preference, you can pick anything that will work for you so that your commitment to Bhagavan remains intact and still. So some of them quickly to walk you through: multi-faith, bhajan, silent sitting is critical, steady circles are very important for our self-realization. Of course, Seva is going to be discussed more at large. Sai Gayatri, Gayatri chanting, Om Sri Sai Ram. The purpose of all these prayers is already told by Bhagavan in numerous discourses. Of course, Rudram chanting, of course, reading of Swami's literature, either Sri Satsai Speaks or Vahini series or Satyam Shivam Sundaram or Tapovanam or anything, and also Namlikat Japam, listening to Swami's discourses, listening to numerous talks, Sai Samarpans, or chanting 108 Ashtotram. And then if you don't find anything that doesn't suit to your needs, there is one called Pick Your Own Sadhana that helps you out to connect to Swami in your own way. Now, once you understand what kind of opportunities you have, now you need to find out how flexible that will be. Like 1008 days, a span of 4 years from now until to Swami's 100th birthday leading to 2025 is not a small time frame. So we are talking about large number of days. And then the flexibility is what we are looking at the current day-to-day life of all of us. So we have created about 7 sadhana offerings that you can pick. Sadhana offering 1 is you pick 1 day in a week leading to 2025 birthdays date. Likewise 2 days and 3 days, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days, 7 and 8. The sadhana offering 8 is exclusive for SSC children. So that is more tailor made for the SSC children. We don't want them to go overwhelmed or anything. So for an example, I'll just pick one of them. Let's say 7 days. How overwhelming it will be if somebody picks a 7-day sadhana, right? So if you click on that, it will open a PDF for you to visualize what is this 7-day offering program. Here you are only going to follow 2 weeks of a month and 7 days, and then you are only picking about 2 activities, and then these are some of the suggested activities that you can pick or you can create your own. It is unlimited opportunity for all of us. So why we created this PDF? Again, going back to the process here is you can download and print, and then you can name yourself, and then you can add what days you want to pick, which 2 weeks you want to pick, and then what sadhana activities. The only difference here is we are making 2 items kind of and requesting all of us to do chanting for world peace, that is 21 omkarams, and also 9 samasta lokas. With that said, and why we want those PDFs, you download it, print it, and then you paste it either any passageway in your home where it reminds you constantly about your sadhana service. For more details, go to the website. Thank you. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sai Kishore. That's a very good overview. I think, as I said before, some people are benefited by having a structure like this, and so this is really very helpful for those of us who like to have that kind of structure. Obviously, in the end, it's a personal sadhana. It is trying to encourage you. So, and we'll have more programs such as those, or beyond that, and for the months to come, I think we'll discuss a lot more of those. So over to you, Balu.
Thank you, Durjiti and Sai Kishore. Now we move Manme Ram and Hatme Kam. Swami says not only the devotional and sadhanas, and also that should translate into service. Let us hear from Brother Giridhar.
Giridhar, Sai Ram, you're on mute.
Sai Ram. So continuing with what our brothers just shared about preparation. So the preparation already has been set in place by our devotional coordinator, Brother Durjiti, about study circle materials and individual sadhana. So it just continues from that as the foundation stone. So let me just share a few thoughts on this one. There it is. So our preparation, what we are hoping is only going to be enriched by the study circle material that's going to be tailor-made for this pilgrimage to come. And we continue to participate very actively in all center functions and activities. And while doing so, a constant contemplation is going to be extremely important and beneficial, because why are we doing what we are doing? Who am I? What's the connection with the Almighty God? So these are the questions that we keep asking from time to time or constantly, as and when we are going through all this program. And the more importantly, spiritualizing all acts of service is the most important thing that we want to keep in mind as part of this sadhana. And participation. So we are now going from reading and contemplation, and then now participating, putting it into practice. This is the ground. So individual sadhana through group participation. So activities can be various, but the goal remains the same. Once again, this is transformation of the self. What am I doing? Why am I doing? Is the constant question that we ask ourselves. And that is what exactly the reflection part is. And what we are hoping we could do is, as the whole nation, once we start putting this program together and start doing the sadhana, we may actually want to develop a report, a big document that shows what we did, where we did, and how we did, and what the end goal, and that sort of thing. So we prepare a report. And finally, the culmination is going to Prashanti for pilgrimage centennial celebrations. And by that time, the fulfillment we are hoping to achieve is transformation of the self. This is, once again, transformation of the self is we are comparing only with ourselves, against ourselves, what we were yesterday compared to today. This is a self-measurement. And that will be the driving force. And then the report, probably the one that we wanted to put together, we may want to dedicate, that should be the goal that we think in, to dedicate it the lotus feet of Swami. And once we are there at the Holy Land, this is the most exciting thing that we want to continue to explore and bring it to everybody. So irrespective of the age groups and gender, young and the able, everybody, SSC, YS, everyone will have an opportunity to participate in various activities out there that are present within Prasanthi Nilayam campus and outside, including medical camps and Grama Seva, which is the village service in the villages, and so on and so forth. So that is a kind of structure that we have in mind, but in the days to come, weeks to come, months to come, definitely there's going to be more discussion on this one. Thank you, Sarah. Back to you, Brother Balu.
Ram Giridhar, that's a wonderful. This is, as we say, this is just a beginning, and we need all of you to come together so that we can evolve this program. We are all here to serve. Now over to Brother Sai Shravan, because media are going to play a big role, and all the communication, and you'll be seeing different updates coming up about the Parthi Pilgrimage. Over to you, Sai Shravan.
Sairam, Brother Balu. I hope you all are able to hear me. With Swami's grace, I think, we have put in a beautiful website very quickly. I will quickly show you the website, what we have, and I would request that everybody constantly keep looking at this website, because one of the cornerstone for our SSGC Global Council Zone 1 is to be transparent. When I say transparent, all the communications or the announcements that are being made from the office of Brother Akshay or Brother Balu, all those announcements will be published on our website under latest announcements. I think, and that is the place where I would really request all the members to keep visiting, and so that you keep updated yourself with the latest information. And we don't want to leave any devotee left behind in terms for want of information. That is the first aspect. And there is also events, a calendar that we will be posting some events, upcoming events. You constantly please look at that as well. Now, moving on to our main website, if you go to the main page, there is a button for registering yourself under Telegram app that we will be communicating a lot of information there. And also we have this mailing list. Those who would like to join the mailing list, please do join. And we have this YouTube link as well. All the beautiful videos that with Swami's grace we are releasing, they will be published. And once you go ahead and register to the website, you will have get a notification when there is a new video is released, and you can see this video populating here, the latest videos, and we have a playlist as well. Going down, we have different tabs for each of these service, Balvikas, or we call it as Satyasai Spiritual Educator. and we have for devotion as well, and YA's young adults page as well, and many resources here. And more important, this frequently asked questions, this will be really giving you a lot of information, and you can keep yourself updated. As far as this Swami's birthday, centennial birthday celebrations is concerned, Brother Balu has already nicely, beautifully quoted Swami's saying, Man me Ram, Hath me Kam, which means Man me Ram is to keep Swami in our heart, and Hath me Kam to be more hands-on, like both Brother Durjati and Giridhar has explained how. So this website is a particular tool that we would like to use this tool effectively, and put both the programs, both the wings of Swami, like Manmeram Hall, all the devotional activities that we are planning to undertake will be published here. And I would really request all the devotees to quickly go through this website, and also all the Seva programs. Recently, with Swami's grace, the Haiti Seva, we picked up quite quickly and put up a nice, beautiful website. A lot of devotees were, pouring into that service, and that's a hands-on seva that is very well received by all our members in our global council family, and that is really going well. And we have created nice dashboards to generate a lot of reports and other things, though that is not visible here. But the whole Haiti the page is available for you all to go ahead and utilize that. And also, I think the platform, one thing we are very excited with Brother Balu's guidance, that we want to create a platform for multi-faith celebrations on this web page. And all, we have so many festivals coming up, and I believe Brother Durjat alluded to Atirudra Mahayajnam, where Swami, it's so close to Swami's heart. I would like to ask Brother Balu, as we got this request from the centers, what is your vision? How do you propose that we move forward on this? Could you please
thank you, Shravan, for that question. And see, Swami always says, Rudram Chadivite Bhadram Autam. This is Swami saying, actually saying that if you chant Rudram, you become strong and you can face any challenge that protects you. So again, Atirudra Mahayajnam is also part of one of the spiritual practice, just like multi-faith prayers, and also celebrating Christmas, celebrating Hanukkah, this kind of Buddha Purnima, all multi-faith celebrations and spiritual practices. So some centers came forward to do the Atirudra Mahayajnam. We said, yes, we have a Veda and sacred text committee working group set up by the SSSGC for the June. So that will be guiding in the Swami's way. Swami is the center for all activities. All activities, I wanted to reiterate here, all activities with Swami centric are allowed. With dedicating at the lotus feet are allowed. We as a national team, we are here to serve all of you. Please come forward to do any of these wonderful spiritual practices, and also when you are going as a groups to Puttaparthi, please let us know so that we can help you from here itself. With that, over to you, Shravan. Still, we have any?
Sure, thank you, Balu. And like Brother Balu mentioned, that we are creating an infrastructure to register the devotees who wish to go to Puttaparthi. So that's a beautiful opportunity for us. Because of this current situation, we want to make sure that we have the full data who's traveling to Puttaparthi, and their accommodation is also taken care. So we will be putting some kind of infrastructure on our website, how to register, and so that we can keep you all in the loop at the moment. And on our website at the bottom, there is a page for you. If you have any questions, please do send that questions to that page. I hope, for inquiries, please send a question to this. This comes to our team's attention, and we will process and take it forward from there. I think with that, I will turn it on to Brother Balu for any closing remarks. Thank you.
Sai Ram, thank you all again. And let us come together and go to Parthi as a Parthi pilgrimage, enjoy all the place. And also it is our duty to, show this wonderful place and all the places where Swami walked, and also to our next generations, so that they show to their generations. And that's the way we connect them to Prashanti Nilayam. serve locally, connect globally. Your connection to Prashant Leela with Satya Sai Global Council. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Sai Ram.
ब्रह्मार्पणं ब्रह्महविर् ब्रह्माग्नो ब्रह्मणाहुतं ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्मकर्म समाधिनः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पचान्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
O Lord, Thou art the food. Thou art the enjoyer of the food. Thou art the giver and preparer of the food. Along with the inward and outward breaths, you are the digestive fire that digests all types of food. We offer to you all that we consume.
The act of offering is God. The oblation is God. By God it is offered into the fire of God. God is that which is to be attained by him who performs actions pertaining to God. Becoming the live fire in the bodies of living beings, mingling with the subtle breaths, digests the four kinds of food. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Om Peace Peace Peace.
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्. ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्. ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्.
पुकार हमारी आज तू सुन ले, खुशी की बरसात आज तू कर दे. सुन ले साईं मेरी पुकार तू सुन ले. कुटुम्बकं वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्
न गुरोर अधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोर अधिकं तपः तत्त्वाज्ञानात् परं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. There is no higher truth than the Guru. There is no higher penance than service to the Guru. There is nothing higher than the realization of the knowledge of the truth imparted by the Guru. Our salutations to such a Guru who is himself that very timeless truth. Avatars, they say, emerge from the limitless ocean of ever-expanding consciousness, clad in a vesture of ether and air, fire, water, and earth. And in these exquisite episodes of momentousness, they leave behind footprints for all of us to follow and find our way back to him. On this holy morning of Guru Purnima, may this reminder seep deep into our hearts, and that it is not us, it is you, Swami, who breathes life into us. Namo Namaha Shri Guru Padukabhyam.
Sai Ram, we the young adults of the South Bethesda Sai Center offer our deepest salutations at the lotus feet of our Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Swami, we humbly dedicate this program entitled Sunle Sai Mere Pukar, meaning, listen to our call, O Sai, as a token of our gratitude and immense love for you. We will now begin this program with the Ganesha Bhajan as we invoke Lord Ganapati to grace us with his presence. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, dear elders, brothers, and sisters. Bhagavan, we humbly offer this gift at your lotus feet. Our program, entitled Sunne Sai Mere Pukar, or O Sai, Hear My Call to You, is an expression of our deep yearning for you, O Lord. We call out to you to listen to our prayers. Guide us as we are constantly awash in this illusion that is Maya. As young adults, we often face challenges as we try to find our place in this world. Sometimes, these challenges can be moments which are character-defining. O Lord, please help us to remember your name in such moments.
In this play, we will follow Siddhika Sai and their conflict of conscience that is all too common for Sai youth growing up in a country away from India. Luckily for Sai, they have a strong group of friends that they grew up with in the Sai Center who will share their actual lived experiences in order to help navigate this situation. Let us move in closer to see what Sai's troubles are and what their friends are saying.
How's college been, Sai?
You know, Rekha, college has been definitely difficult. I just really miss Swami.
Yeah.
Even though I theoretically know that he's always with me, I sometimes wonder if he's actually even listening.
I can definitely relate to that. You know, it can be so hard to feel his presence with us all the time, especially as we're going through the mundane existence of each day.
Exactly. Oftentimes I wish I was born even a decade earlier. These older devotees come and talk to us about their intimate and incredible experiences with Swami. I was so young that I hardly even remember his physical presence.
Yeah. And the solutions to their problems just seem so simple. Whenever they were facing any difficulty, like all they had to do was go to Puttaparthi and they could ask Swami directly.
Yeah, why do we have to do all the hard work of quieting our minds and going within?
Why couldn't we just be students at Swami's school? Everyone there thinks the same.
That's all true, but we're also still so lucky, you know? I mean, think about it. Of all the trillions of organisms that exist, we few have been lucky enough to be born as humans, which is a gift. And even then, even fewer are contemporaries of the Avatar. And even fewer then get the opportunity to know him, like we do. And we check all of those boxes. I mean, how incredibly lucky are we?
Yeah, I know you're right, but I just wish that I could feel his presence.
We can still feel Swami's presence. As Sai said, many of us are not as closely attached to any one form. So, we can easily connect and see Swami in many different forms, and the avenues through which we connect are infinitely many more.
Suppose that's true.
It's definitely true. I recently had an experience where I went through just that.
Last year, in the height of the pandemic, there was a formation of a group of young adults from across our nation who wanted to take part in weekly Friday bhajans to help uplift and re-energize our spiritual souls during this time. One Friday, which happened to fall on the day of Varalakshmi Vratam, I was asked to sing. I submitted the bhajan Namo Sharada and attended the session like usual. After finishing the session and logging off of the Zoom call, I received a text from one of the YAs with a screenshot of a conversation between him and an auntie that he knew from his center. The auntie had sent a picture of her altar with Mata Lakshmi and a big red flower at her feet. The message reads, when the girl was singing Satya Sai Ishwari Mata, the big red maroon flower, which was on top of the rose, today is Varalakshmi Vratam, and the flower fell exactly when she sang Sai Ishwari Mata in second speed. The YA sends this message to me and I get overwhelmed with a sense of love, and I'm so thankful to Swami for giving me his divine reassurance through any channel. This experience is one that reminds me every day Swami is with me, even when we may be physically distant from the things that we hold close to us.
Wow, what a touching experience, Rekha. I guess it shows us that even now, Swami is blessing us with his subtle presence.
But that's the beauty of the experience. You don't have to sing to him just to connect to him. In fact, we have so many opportunities to see him and connect to him every single moment. We just have to turn our vision to him.
Exactly. Focusing ourselves on him and him alone is so important, especially at our stage, given how many distractions we face. So, when we train our mind onto thoughts of him through any method of devotion or sadhana, we can actually feel him. For example,
as is true with most college experiences, my freshman year of college involved quite a bit of adjustment. One day, all of my friends were planning to go to a party and were desperately trying to get me to join. Wanting to stick to Swami's clear injunction of staying away from situations that unnecessarily tempt the senses, I declined the invite, although it took a couple tries. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but feel rather lonely. I was the only person left in the dorm, while everyone else was having a good time. Although I knew it was the right decision, I found myself confronted with the difficulty of actually staying on Sai's path and remaining true to his teachings. This was the first time that I really seemed different from everyone else, and I wasn't sure that I was prepared for 4 years of that feeling. The next morning, I was walking back to my dorm from a class, and was still desperately looking for recognition from Swami that I'd done the right thing. I made my way across campus, stopping only at the street running right in front of my building. I looked up to check for cars, and found an SUV stopped at the stop sign, with a beautiful large Ganesha statue front and center on the dashboard. I almost couldn't believe my eyes. I had been praying intensely to Swami throughout that previous night and that morning, and there he was, standing immediately in front of me in the form of Ganesha. It's difficult to describe the exact feeling of that situation. It was such a seemingly small event, but I was overwhelmed by the feeling of his presence and love in that moment. I realized then that following Swami is not easy. It's actually quite difficult. But when we attach ourselves to him, he makes everything worthwhile.
That's such an amazing experience. Swami gave you direct reassurance that he is always there.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with feeling his presence when I'm away at college, just because there's so much we have to avoid, you know?
true. But when there's no other alternative, we have to attach ourselves to him. And when we choose him over the world, he always responds.
That's so true. When we choose him, he chooses us and makes his presence known. When the pandemic had started,
and when everything came to a standstill on all outside activities, I found myself not knowing how to keep up with my daily routine while being stuck at home, looking at the same 4 walls, day in and day out, I started reading the Devobanam book every week. I had just started a job as a federal government contractor, but I did not have access to paid time off. But I was eternally grateful to Swami for giving me such a great and reasonably paid job right when things were starting to go haywire. Around 11 months into my job and at the start of a new federal administration, I started looking for a more stable and permanent job that would allow me to have all benefits, including the ability to take off. I passively applied to a few, did the needful, and went on with my normal business. On one day, I received a LinkedIn message from a recruiter from a global brand consulting company that was hiring data analysts for their federal client program. I had an initial call with the recruiter who shortlisted my profile and wanted me to call for me for an interview. Over the duration of that week, I was having daily discussions with my family on what I should do about the situation. On one particular Thursday, I was talking to my mom about the prospects of the job market, and I told her that I'm going to stop worrying about my dilemma and surrender my predicament to Swami and just go with the flow. Mom, I am going to stop worrying about the job. The following Monday, around the end of the day, I received a voicemail from the recruiter. I immediately called him back, and he proceeded to tell me that the interview team liked me very much and wanted to extend a job offer. I was more than ecstatic, as it was a direct hire with a global consulting firm, a higher pay, and it was still in the DC area.
In one of the chapters of the Devobanam, Swami talks about the power of surrender and leaving it all to him and letting him drive the course. This is exactly what I did. And when I took one step towards him, he took 100 steps towards us. Did Swami answer my prayers, but he did so in such an unexpected way that I can only thank Swami for. It would not have been possible without his grace and his blessings. Swami is still very much omnipresent in everything that we do, and all we have to do is utter his name or think of him, and he will automatically come to our call.
Wow, what a powerful experience, Prashanti. That is truly inspiring, and it's so true. When we earnestly call out to him, Swami has no choice but to respond to us.
Yes, I totally agree. When our yearning is so intense, he will have no option but to respond to us. This reminds me of a time when I went to Puttaparthi. A few years ago, I was blessed to visit Parthi on my birthday. However, due to the long journey by car, we were greatly delayed. The estimated time of arrival was 9 p.m. I was feeling dejected that I wouldn't be able to have Swami's darshan. That day, there happened to be a special event, and the Sevadal found a way for me to be seated inside the Kulwant hall at the last minute.
कुटिलितकेशं नीरजनयनं वदनं मतिमधुरम् वीणतिवेमनसुमुखं सुरुचिरवचनं सुललितगमनं हृदयं करुणानवा प्रवहति प्रेमार्णवम् विकसितकुसुमं मृदुमधुभरितम् आनन्दं तव दर्शनम् आनन्दं तव दर्शनम् प्रहर्षितभावं प्रमुदितगीतम् अर्पितं तनुमनसकलं श्रीसायीशं सहृदचरणम् अभिवृतानन्दानुबन्धम् समरिपमदपसदरि सरिमगरे सरिमगरे सरिपमरे तरिदसपदमपरिमपदस सरिमपदस सरिमपदस सरि निसदनि पदमपगमरि गनि सरि निसरि गपमगरि गमपदनि सपपरि ससकरि निमगरि पमगरि मगरि सरि निसरि गमनि निस निसगरि स निसरि गम गमपमगरि सगरि ग सगरि ग सगरि ग सगरि ग समगम 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 मनिदनि 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 दगरि ग सगरि सगनि पनि स निसगरि स निसनि गम गमनि गम गमगरि स आनन्दं तव दर्शनम् अनुपमाभिनवरूपं विकसितकुसुमं मृदुमधुभरितम् आनन्दं तव दर्शनम् आनन्दं तव दर्शनम्
I was overjoyed and felt Swami's presence with me. Each song and every prayer that day deeply connected me to Swami. Once the program had concluded, the Seva Dal distributed boxes that had prasadam, a bracelet, and a picture of Swami to each cluster of devotees. There was another person seated beside me who wasn't given prasadam but had trouble voicing her desire. Seeing her anguish, I gave her my prasadam. I began to pray and pleaded to Swami, asking if I could have one box. Suddenly, a Seva Dal came running back towards me. She said, "Here, this is for you." It was at that moment that I knew that it was Swami who lovingly gave me what I asked for. When I opened the box, the picture of Swami fell out and had the words "Love You" on it. Tears came to my eyes as I realized that it was Swami who had heard my prayers.
Take just one step towards him, he will take 100 steps towards us. His divine miracles are reminders of his love and a call to action to always remember him.
That's incredible. Wow, Swami really lived in every single thought of yours and responded to every single wish. That's amazing.
Honestly, this is just so inspiring for all of us. It's a reminder that Swami is constantly there with each and every one of us listening to our prayers.
These beautiful experiences show how Swami is always with us. He always says, "Ni intane mentane jatane unda nenu," meaning I am always with you, next to you, besides you, and in you, Bhagwan. We are so grateful for all the love and grace you shower with every breath we take. We pray to you so that you may always remain in our thoughts at every minute for our lives. Yet Bhavam tat bhavati.
Not only is he always listening, but when we call out to him with sincere devotion and faith, he has no choice but to respond. His heart melts like butter at the sound of his devotees' calls. We shouldn't forget that he has chosen us and is looking after us, guiding us and guarding us. He will never, ever let us go. We are his, and now we must make him ours.
You are always with us, making your presence known, either through a soft breeze or a flower that falls on its own. You are with us in our happiness and joy, as the warm sun or the smile of a little boy. You guide us through, even on our darkest day. With your abundant love, you show us the way. You appear as all forms, Buddha, Jesus, Rama, and Sai, an object of adoration for every person's eye. You impart your wisdom to us as our teacher. Without you, we would be lost, adrift in the ether. You joke and play with us as our friend, for you are the only one with us till the end. You are the beacon, should we ever stray from the path, the warm, welcoming light that ever guides us back. So on this day, hear our call, O Sadguru, as we make this loving offering to you.
Dealing with the vicissitudes of life can be hard, with obstacles always catching us off guard. Guidance is something that we all need, and thanks to you, Swami, we can follow your lead. Your core teachings of Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa, we are all able to learn. And for all of this, you ask nothing in return. Your wisdom and kindness is infinite, and your love and care is indiscriminate. Sometimes I wonder if there's anything I can do, but then I remember, love all, serve all is the way to you. Jai Saram.
Sai हे अम्बे जगदम्बे सुन ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे सुन ले जागे नवन ज्योति मीटे अंधकार सुन ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे सुन ले पुकार खोलो नयन दिव्य जागे नवन ज्योति मीटे अंधकार सुन ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे निस दिन रहे तेरे चरणों से ये भक्ति निस दिन रहे तेरे चरणों से ये भक्ति दुख दे भरे दुख दे भरे लाके साहेले दे शक्ति दुख दे भरे लाके साहेले दे शक्ति माने नहार सुने ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे सुने ले पुकार खोलो नयन दिव्य जागे नवन ज्योति मीटे अंधकार सुने ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे जागे अमित द्वेष अन्य किन अनाचार जागे अमित द्वेष अन्य किन अनाचार भव भय अगम सिंधु साई साई सुन ले पुकार गम सिंधु जीवन निराधार भव भय अगम सिंधु जीवन निराधार सूझे न पार सुने ले पुकार हे अम्बे जगदम्बे सुने ले पुकार खोलो नयन दिव्य जागे नवन ज्योति मीटे अंधकार सुने ले पुकार हे सुन ले पुकार खोलो नयन दिव्य जागे नवन ज्योति मीटे
एक ओंकार सतनाम करता मूरख निर्मोह निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सभम गुरु प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक हो से ही सच गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु गोविंद मेरी पूजा गुरु गोविंद गुरु मेरा पार ब्रह्म गुरु भगवंत गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु गोविंद गुरु मेरा पार ब्रह्म गुरु भगवंत गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु मेरा देवा अलख अमेया गुरु मेरा देवा अलख अमेया सर्व पूज शरण गुरु सेवा सर्व पूज शरण गुरु सेवा गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु गोविंद गुरु मेरा पार ब्रह्म गुरु भगवंत गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु का दर्शन देख देख जीवा गुरु का दर्शन देख देख जीवा गुरु के चरण दोए दोए पीवा गुरु मेरा ज्ञान गुरु हृदय ध्यान गुरु मेरा ज्ञान गुरु हृदय ध्यान गुरु गोपाल पुरख भगवान गुरु गोपाल पुरख भगवान गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु गोविंद गुरु मेरा पार ब्रह्म गुरु भगवंत गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु मेरी पूजा गुरु मेरी पूजा
पुकार हमारी आज तू सुन ले खुशी की बरसात आज तो कर दे। सुन ले साईं मेरी पुकार तू सुन ले। सुन ले साईं मेरी पुकार तू सुन ले। भूल न जाऊं मैं कभी अब राह दिखा रे तू ही मुझे। तेरी आहटे मेरी मुस्कुराहटे। तेरी आहटे मेरी मुस्कुराहटे। वसुधैव कुटुम्बकं वसुधैव कुटुम्बकं वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्।
We would like to thank our YA brothers and sisters for putting a lot of effort into this program and making it. We would also like to thank the committee for giving us this platform to convey our message. Last but not least, we would like to thank our Divine Master and Guide, Swami, for giving us this opportunity. Hamare pukar sunne ke liye dhanyawad. Thank you for listening to our call. Sai Ram.
We love you, Swami.
If not for us, who else could have rendered such impeccable service for 4 long months to the hallowed sage Durvasa and his entourage of 10,000 disciples?
It is true, Suyodhana. Hospitality is the hallmark of the Kuru dynasty.
My dear Bhanje Suyodhana, hospitality is the best way to end hostilities. This is the best chance that you have to annihilate the Pandavas once and for all.
Gandhar Naresh, for once, let us fight like Kshatriyas on the battlefield. Suyodhana, let us end this conflict in a royal way.
Radheya, a simple throw of dice had achieved what your arrows could not. Do not underestimate the power of statecraft, Karna.
Yes, Karna. Mama Shri is correct. So tell me, Mama Shri, what do you have in mind?
Suyodhana, use Durvasa's Agraha as the astra against the Pandavas. Let the curse at the tip of the Rishi's tongue become the bane for the Pandavas and a boon for the Kauravas. The Rishi is mighty pleased with your hospitality and will definitely grant you a boon.
Understood, Mama Shri. Leave the rest to me.
Yuvraj Suyodhan.
Pranams, Munivarya.
Ayushman Bhava.
Dushasana, did you make the arrangements for the Mahatma's rest?
Every arrangement has been made, brother. And I have personally...
Do not take any more pains for me, Vats. It's time for me to leave. I am extremely pleased with your devotion. Ask from me any boon, no matter how valuable or hard. I shall grant it.
Munivarya, the opportunity to serve saints like you is itself a blessing. But I have one small request. Just as you blessed us with your darshan, it is my desire that my brothers, the Pandavas, too must be given a chance to serve your lotus feet. And
Suyodhana, do not hesitate. Rishi Maharaj is benevolence personified. He will definitely heed your prayer.
one last request. Please visit the Pandavas only after Sister Panchali has had her meal.
So be it. I shall definitely bless the Kaunteyas with my visit.
Very soon, the Pandavas will be burnt to ashes in the fire of Durvasa's temper. And Yuvraj Suyodhan will become
Maharaj Suyodhan. Agraja, with every passing day of exile, my mace is getting more and more eager to cleanse the Bharatvarsha of the evil Kauravas. If only you would have permitted, I would have finished the task long ago.
Bhimasena, have patience. If we too are ruled by the surging emotions instead of the inner conscience, what is the difference between us and Duryodhana? This is a trial of fire from which we shall emerge purified.
But what about the comforts in which our evil cousins are rejoicing? And the misery in which we are languishing?
Bhima, as our beloved Vasudeva has said, that too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Munivarya, what a pleasant surprise. Your visit to our humble hermitage has sanctified all our lives.
Dharmaraj, all the pleasantries can wait. First, my 10,000 disciples and I are suffering from intense hunger. Make arrangements for food to be served. We will go to the river for a bath and return.
But Agraja, it is well past noon. Panchali must have had her food by now, and the power of the Akshaya Patra would be over for the day.
Then how are we going to serve the massive retinue of the sage? He has a short temper, and moreover, he is hungry. God knows what terrible curse he will hurl on us.
Draupadi? Draupadi?
Natha, what is the matter?
Devi, Maharshi Durvasa has arrived with his disciples. If we are not able to feed them, we are bound to be cursed by him.
But Swami, how are we going to feed them? I've already had my lunch.
What is this play of destiny, Agraja? The ruler of the world and torchbearer of righteousness, unable to feed a single hungry Brahmin?
Bhima, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitaha. One who follows Dharma shall never be harmed.
And where there is Dharma, there is Krishna. He is our sole refuge. Shri Krishna. Sana भक्तसन्त्राणशीला गोपालदेवा
Krishna,
Madhusudana, Janardana,
Keshava, Sodari Panchali,
Krishna,
I am very hungry. Please serve me some food.
even now you are testing us, Krishna. Hey Hridayavasi, you know our inner torment. Please rescue us.
First, feed me. Then we will discuss all your problems.
There is nothing left, Vasudeva. Only the empty vessel and our empty hands.
I don't believe that. There must be something. At least a grain of rice. Get the vessel, sister.
Brajishnur Bhojanam Bhota Sahishnur Jagadadi Anagho Vijayo Jeta Vishwayoner Punarvasu.
May this leaf satisfy not only me, but the entire universe. Bhimasena, go and fetch the venerable sage and his disciples. Do not accept any excuses from them. Did you understand?
Understood, Vasudeva. Years of your company has rubbed a little bit of mischief in me too.
Krishna, Apad Bandhava, you have rescued us yet again. Any words of gratitude would fail to quantify your infinite love for us.
It is not just love, Dharmaja. It is my duty too. For those who have contemplated on me ceaselessly, their protection and well-being becomes my responsibility.
Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
Gurudeva, though we have eaten nothing, our stomach seems to be bursting with food. Help us, Gurudeva. Help us.
What nonsense are you talking? Just a few minutes back, you were so hungry. Now, what happened? Shiv Shiva, Shiv Shiva, Shiv Shiva, Shiv Shiva.
Pranams, Munivarya. Agraja has prepared a variety of dishes to serve you, Your Holiness. Please bless us by accepting our hospitality.
Bhimasena, there is no place in my stomach, even for a single grain of rice. I am not even in a position to walk.
Maharishi, if you don't mind, I shall carry you on my back and take you to the hermitage in a moment.
Please leave me, Bhimasena. Understand my plight. I cannot accept your invitation.
That is not possible, Munivarya. My brother will take me to task if I reach the hermitage without thy hallowed self.
It is all your divine Leela, Lord. I was tricked by that evil Duryodhana who convinced me with all sweet words soaked in hypocrisy.
That Dusht Duryodhana again?
All those who have sent me here with evil intentions will be destroyed. Please send my sincere apologies to Vasudeva. As long as he's by your side, crisis will shudder to come near you. Vijayi Bhava. Sri Krishna Kripa Katakcha Siddhirastu.
स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्य परिपालयन्ता न्यायेन मार्गेण महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यम् समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु.
Sairam, everyone. My name is Gethan Karod, and I'm one of the National Young Adult Advisors. On behalf of the Sri Sathya Sai Global Council USA National team, I wanted to invite you to this afternoon session, which is our young adult panel. So let's begin with 3 Oms. Om. 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 Welcome, dear respected elders, brothers and sisters, SSE students, and SSSE students, and especially all Sai young adults in the United States and Canada and the West Indies. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you especially and most of all to our dear Swami for giving us this opportunity to share time together. And, you know, while I'm sitting here at my home in Austin, Texas, I know there are young adults and Sai devotees all over the US, all over our zone, and maybe even all over the world watching us today. So thank you, Bhagwan, for giving us this opportunity. And may you bless us so that we, that you can speak through us and act through us, and that our words, deeds, and actions all follow your message. I hope you all enjoyed the afternoon, the sessions yesterday, and then also the sessions that we had this morning with Professor Surendranath. I'm extremely excited about today's panel. Today we have such a diverse group of young adults, which just showcases the diversity and the talents and the experiences that are present in the Sai Young Adult program across the country. And especially we can hear about how they are each of them is finding purpose in their lives around them. One housekeeping announcement is that we're hoping to make this a live, this is a live session, and that we're also going to be taking questions at the end. So if you have questions you'd like to send to us, that if we have time we can take them at the end. If you look at the bottom of the screen there's an email address. It says admin@sssgc usa.org. If you have questions, please send them to that email address, and we'll try to incorporate them at the end as we can. With that, you don't need to hear from me anymore, so I'm going to pass it over to Geeta Reed, who's the other National Young Adult Advisor, and she's going to introduce this wonderful group of panelists today. Off to you, Geeta.
Thank you, Gethin, Brother Gethin. Offering my most humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our sweet Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. And respected elders, brothers and sisters, YAs, and not forgetting SSSE students as well. Welcome to all of you. And like Brother Gethin said, we've got viewers on from Canada, West Indies, and USA. So a big loving Sairam to all of you, and welcome. So I just wanted to take a quick moment just to say how absolutely thrilled and I'm filled with such immense gratitude to Bhagwan putting this wonderful retreat together, this wonderful labor retreat together. And he has sent us such inspirational and uplifting messages and devotees. And to that point, we've come to the latter end of the retreat, and we've come to this YA segment. And it's going to be like icing on the cake. That's the only way I can think of it at the moment, because the panel that Swami has put together is just like the speakers we've seen this weekend. They absolutely imbibe Swami's teachings, and they are all of them just drenched in his love. And so, it really is, I can't say it better than they are. It's going to be icing on the cake. They are an absolutely phenomenal representation of our YA community. And Gethin and I are so proud of them. And so without further ado, let me introduce them. So we have Brother Sumant. And Brother Sumant was born into a Sai family, and he was born in and raised in the Netherlands. His grandmother was the first in the family to become a Sai devotee. And at the age of 14, his family moved to Suriname, where his parents are originally from. After completing high school, Sumant moved to Miami, where he lives today. He joined the Fort Lauderdale Sai Center. Professionally, Sumant has an associate's in science in aviation, and currently he is working on a bachelor's in aeronautics. He is also a certified flight instructor and a Czech pilot. So that's Sumant. Next, I would like to move to India Gonzalez, who was born into the Sai fold as well. She is a graduate of the SSSE and program at South Bethesda Center, and is currently an active young adult at the Sai Center of Manhattan. India has received her Bachelor of Arts from Columbia University and her Masters of Fine Arts, specifically in creative writing, from New York University. And she currently works as the assistant editor at Poets and Writers magazine. India's spirituality and love for Swami is the very cornerstone of everything she does. The third panelist is Sister Meghana Sai Iraga Varupu, and she was blessed to be born loving Swami through sweet lullabies of bhajans from her mother and divine love from her Sai family in Iowa, Minnesota, Greensboro, and now Raleigh, North Carolina. Meghna graduated from Duke University this May with a degree in nutrition sciences. She moved to Boston this summer to start her first job at Boston's Children's Hospital. Currently, she's enjoying sharing her spiritual journey with the Boston YAs. So big shout out to them, I'm sure. And that's through bhajans, workshop, and service activities. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Sister Ananda Gonzalez, who is actually the twin sister of India. And so her profiles are a little bit similar, but there's some differences that you'll hear. So Similarly, she was born into the Sai fold and is a graduate of South Bethesda's SSE program, and she carries both a BA and a Master of Fine Arts from Columbia University in poetry and fiction, respectively, and is currently at work on a collection of short stories. In addition to writing, she is also a professional dancer, choreographer, and filmmaker. Ananda is grateful to have found a home as a YA in the Manhattan Sai Center and feels immensely blessed to travel through life with Swami as her guide, protector, and best friend. So, with that, I am going to jump straight into our first question. Are you all ready? Okay, so we did not rehearse who was going to go first, but I think I will start at the very left of my corner with India. So the question is, how did you first hear about Swami? And can you share an experience where you felt a strong connection to him or his teachings?
Yes, Sairam, thank you everyone for having me. I'm so happy to be here today. You know, it's interesting. So I grew up in the Sai fold, so I was born knowing Swami. And honestly, there was no specific experience where I really understood my strong connection to him. I've been blessed where all of my spirituality has been very innate and very organic. So it kind of just flows throughout life. As Ananda might share a little bit more in detail, I think the first experience I have of really coming to Swami as a child was being like 2 or 3 years old and waddling in our diapers to the altar where our mom would meditate every morning and just sitting in silence and just staring at Swami's photo. And that felt entirely normal and natural for us to do at that age. There were no questions asked. It was just, yes, Swami is God. This is what we do. I don't know where I got that force and that understanding from, but I'm going to say that that's very good past life karma, just building up so that I had that in automatically, which I'm very grateful for. In terms of having a strong connection to his teachings, the thing that I can say is that going to SSC growing up, which was then Balvikas at that time, that was really what drew me to Swami even more. Getting to talk about the human values, getting to talk about these moral and philosophical, ethical and spiritual questions about how to be a good human being, what that means, how to let go of anger, how to have ceiling on desires, why we should have ceiling on desires, all those things, breaking that down and having our SSC gurus help us to understand what all of that really meant so that we could put that into practice. That for me was the most exciting aspect of spirituality, because I believe that before we can really understand what our purpose is in life, right? And we'll get to that a little bit more later, but before we can understand that fully, we have to really know who we are and why we're here. And I think that spirituality answers those questions if we're willing to delve deep into it. And so I've always been excited to have those really sort of like just chew on the whole meal and talk about like, what is life? What is death? Why are we here? Like, let's go head in. And that was always the most exciting aspect of spirituality for me, was being able to answer the huge life questions so that I could then be set on the path correctly.
That's an amazing answer, India. You know, as I reflect on what you've just said, 2 thoughts came to my mind was, yes, definitely past karma, to have been born to a family. Your mother was definitely your first guru, and you imbibed Swami's teachings just from watching her. And then, gosh, you are an evolved soul if you're talking about life and death already in the bigger picture. It's fantastic.
I hope that's the goal.
Thank you. Let's move to Sumant. Sumant, first, same question to you, please, brother.
Salam, everyone. Also, thank you very much for having me. I'm extremely excited. So yeah, as Geetanti already said, I was lucky to be born in a Sai family as well. In the early stages of my life, we happened to go to satsang every other month or so. But then as I grew older, for some reason, we started going to another center back in Holland. And that's where I met an amazing group of friends who until this day I'm still extremely close with. And funny enough, that was for me personally the first real connection that I felt with Swami through the people that I met in the Sai fold. Even though I was a child, it was seeing Swami, now that I look back at it, seeing Swami through other people that you meet That was for me, I think, the moment that I felt that connection. And even when I moved to different places, to my last move here to the Fort Lauderdale Center, every single time it has been the same type of warm welcome, the same type of feeling that you get with the people around you. And that connection with Swami is, it's boundless, it's borderless, it's timeless, and that's the beauty of it that I really experienced so far.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful answer again. And, you know, for our SSE children and even our very younger YAs, you know, the company you keep, as you can see, is immense, right? So, Sumant, you are so blessed to have found great company. So, obviously not luck, it's all Swami is doing. Let's move on. So thank you for sharing. And then let's move to Meghna.
Hi, Ram. My humble pranams at his divine lotus feet. I guess for everyone who's on the call, hello, welcome. I know we can't see you, but sending you lots of love. So when did I hear about Swami? I was also born into a Sai family, and some of my earliest memories are sitting in SSC when I was like 1 or 2 years old, because there's no babysitting at Sai Center. So you're either in SSC or you're kicked out. So I just remember sitting in the circle with my mom, who was the SSC teacher, and just kind of absorbing all of it, enjoying how intently all of the other SSC students were listening. And one really important memory that I have that kind of connects to the experience that led me to feel one of the closest memories to Swami was someone asked my mom, he said, what is the one prayer we can ask Swami that encompasses everything? Because I feel like I have so many things I want from Swami and I don't know how to ask for all of them. And my mom recounted a story where Swami's student actually asked Swami this, right? If there's one prayer that we can ask you, what is it? And it's that he be with you always and he use you as his instrument. Because if you're able to do that, that is all encompassing, right? That is the purpose. So in my second year of undergrad, I had the opportunity to go to Argentina, and I was in Buenos Aires, and I was doing a nutrition education project for homeless mothers and teens. And I was living with a host mom. And so she was almost 75 years old. She didn't live with any family. All of them had passed away. And I was living with her for about a month and a half, and we got very, very close during that time. And she wanted to know all about me. She'd never met anyone from India. She actually thought I was from Brazil first because I spoke Spanish. She was like, I've never met anyone from India. And so obviously the first thing I do whenever I travel anywhere new is I try to find where the Sai Center is. And I've done that in Fiji. I've done that in like lots of different places. And so there's the Uriarte Sai Center in Buenos Aires. And I told my host mom, I said, I really want to go. And they meet at 6 p.m. on Thursdays. Like, can we please go? And I want to take you with me. And mind you, like the backstory is that she had been feeling extremely alone her whole life. So her children had abandoned her. Her husband had passed away. No one was really in contact with her. So she said, the reason that I host all these people and these students from schools is so that I have someone to be with me during this time. And I took her to the Sai Center, and we were sitting there, and crazy enough, also everyone in Uriarte can chant the entire rhythm. Like I just want to put that out there. Like it's an amazing feat. And we were sitting there, we were listening to bhajans, and she was just like squeezing my hand the whole entire time that we were sitting together. And I was like, okay, maybe she's uncomfortable. Like maybe we need to leave. Maybe this is too much on her. And then I turned to her and I'm like, are you okay? And she looks at me and she says, I finally don't feel alone.
Oh.
And I was like, I didn't even hear her for the first time. I was like, do you want to leave? Do you want to leave? And she's like, no, I never want to leave. I want to stay here forever. And so now actually we like have back and forth WhatsApp conversations where she goes to the Uriarte Sai Center every week now. And she like will send me bhajan recordings. Yeah, just even talking about it right now, I feel like so connected, so happy. so that's like one of those experiences where Swami uses you as his instrument. And I think once you've experienced that, there's nothing else that compares to being able to share him, to share his love.
Wow, that's an amazing story, Meghna. So you're so lucky that you've opened yourself up to be his instrument, and I know we've shared lots of experiences, but that's a beautiful one. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, and then let's move to Sister Ananda, please.
Sairam, everyone. It's a blessing to be here. I'm very excited to be on this panel. India's done so much groundwork for me for this question, which is amazing. So thank you for that. I, as well, no surprise, was born into the Sai fold, and that was and has been an immense blessing. And like India said, emulating our beautiful mother, who is deeply devoted, we sort of picked up on her devotion very early and would often sit next to her and look at that photo of Swami for hours in the early morning in silence, not fully understanding what was going on, but I think in a deeper way, completely understanding what was going on. And so there came a point after a few days of meditating alongside our mom when we were 2 or 3, where India and I just looked at her and said, "Oh, we get it. Baba is God." And she was like, "Yes." And we said, "Okay." And I think really after that day, things sort of clicked for us, and he's remained a main fixture in our hearts and in our minds. And so that was a blessing too, to sort of understand that very early. And I can share a brief story too about a moment that took place personally about a few weeks ago, actually, in which I felt very connected to Swami in a way I have not quite on my journey thus far. And I think that he gives us these little glimpses and peaks of that sweet nectar that's at the very end of our journey and along the way to sort of keep us in this chase, which is, again, another blessing and a kindness that he grants us. And so just a few weeks ago, I was actually reading the book Be Here Now by Ram Dass. And I took a second to sort of digest a passage I just read. And I think it was about chakras, actually, and sort of the alignment of the energy running through us. And I was just sitting there. And in this moment, it's like Swami had opened the door to my heart. And this immense love and light just came like flooding out of my chest. I could almost sort of physically feel it. And it was really overwhelming, and it lasted for quite a few minutes. But I could, in my mind's eye, nearly see this light sort of just coming out of me. And I just knew the source of that love didn't belong to me. It was Swami's entirely. And I felt that it was infinite. It would keep pouring and keep pouring and keep pouring if I kept that door open. And in that moment, the only thing I wanted to do was share that love with everyone in the world. And what's hilarious is that in my mind, I knew that there are people in my life who, you categorize as, oh, this person's hurt me, or I'm not a fan of this person because of X, Y, Z. All those silly little judgments that the mind and the ego convinces us are real completely just sort of shed away. And I had this deep urge just to give love to everyone who came past my mind, who, if a thought arose, I said, I have to give them love. I have to give them love. Like it was almost this frenzy of, I'm here to do this one thing. This is my mission. And it was so beautiful because it was the easiest thing I'd ever experienced in my life. I had to do nothing. I mean, I was completely energized by Swami's love. And then after a few moments, the door sort of slowly closed, and it wasn't this fullness pouring out anymore. But in that moment, I finally understood what Swami meant by calling us divine embodiments of love, and what it means to actually feel that in a sort of sensory way, and how that can bleed into how we see ourselves and others. And we can let loose and sort of shed all these sort of silly little things and tricks that our minds convince us of, and all the Maya that we can attach to along the way. And when we do that, there's nothing but this beautiful, overwhelming sensation of wanting to give, because it's not ours. So you just return it back to the source and everybody else. So that's a brief example that I'll share that happened recently, which I feel very grateful for.
There's absolutely nothing I can say to reflect on that, because it's so beautiful. You're so blessed. And, I hope that we get to experience that as well, all of us. Thank you for sharing. We've got so many questions. I feel like I'd like to go off on a tangent and just discuss that, but we'll keep moving on. All right, so let's go to question number 2. And Gethan, if you want to jump in and say anything. We're only on question 1, so we'll keep moving. So now, question number 2 is for a lot of YAs, there's a point in time when your relationship with Swami and the center goes from being your parents' thing to your own relationship, right? So could you talk about that transition? And let's switch it up. Let's go to Meghna.
How did I know you were going to call on me? Yeah, so I think I'm one of the younger ones on the panel. So this transition has been pretty recent for me, since I just graduated undergrad. So I would say the transition happened actually as soon as I left for college. And it was the singular decision of whether to put a life-size photo of Swami in my dorm room with my roommate. And that singular decision marks the transition between Swami being something related to my family and something on my own. And so if you're curious, the decision I ended up making was to keep it in my room, but it didn't come as naturally as I had hoped it would come. In fact, I did not. I hid it in my closet for 2 to 3 weeks because I was embarrassed and I had no idea how to explain to my roommate from the suburbs of Florida who this man with an afro in a long orange robe was. And I also had no idea how to explain it to myself. And that was kind of the bigger issue, because when you're put into a situation in which it's not a given for everyone to know who Swami is, who he represents, what his values are, you're challenged a bit to ask yourself, do I really believe in this? Am I really Swami's student? Like, is this real? So I couldn't sleep for the first 2 weeks because I was like, oh my God, I put Swami in the closet. It's probably dark in there. It probably smells in there. He's probably really uncomfortable. And then I actually went to Center in Raleigh in North Carolina. And I found my Sai family again. And they were praising me for having come to Center even after moving and coming to college. And I was like, well, if only you knew that Swami was literally in the closet. So that day I went home and I took Swami out of the closet and I hung him up right in front of my desk area. And that was that. I think I can't explain exactly what happened, but then when the conviction comes, it's there to stay. And so there's kind of a physical and a metaphysical reasoning that kind of happened there. But that was my transition.
That's fantastic. That's a fantastic story. So I hope all those students that have just recently moved to college, if you're hiding your picture of Swami, please don't hide it. Take example and bring Swami out. Wonderful. Let's Sumant. Let's go to Sumant, please. Thank you.
So for me, my transition has also been fairly recent since I'm not that old yet as well. But just going back a little bit when I was still kind of following my parents, it was not always following my parents as well. As I said, in the beginning, we used to go every once in a while to the center. But then when I met that group of friends, it was kind of me pushing every single satsang that I wanted to go, because it was, I think, an hour drive away each way. So my parents were kind of hesitant to go every time, driving and spending the time. But every single time it was me pushing. But still, after that, I wasn't really into, how would you say, like Swami's teachings, as it were, at that point yet. I was just going, I loved music at that point in my life. So I was more going for the bhajans. I connected completely with that. But the moment where that really changed is when I moved here to Florida for my studies as well. For some reason, I don't know how, it's all funny, but for some reason I decided to get into contact with, I think it was the YA rep of the center here, before I even moved to here. And they told me about when they're meeting for satsang. And when I moved here, in the first couple of days, that was one of the first things I did. I went to satsang here. And since that day, my parents left me here. I was here all alone. But every single week, I would just go there. And now that I think back of it, I don't know why I was going. I just, something said that I needed to go there. I wanted to go there. But that decision every single week has changed me a lot as a person. And now I can say, that that was the point in time where it became my decision to go. It became my own will to go, and I'm eternally grateful for that choice that I made. And yeah, it's just funny to see how those things play out. You don't know why you do something, but afterwards you look back and you think, that makes sense.
Yeah, Swami was calling you, and you listened. You listened, and you had that yearning in your heart as we hear it. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Sumant, and let's go to India, please.
All right, Sairam. So my story is, not that different from what we've all been speaking about. I think anytime we have a life transition, that also means that we have a transition within our spiritual journey. So going to college being one of those. I think that for me, going to a new city and a new center where no one knew me or my family meant that I had to either make sure that connection was there, or it just wasn't going to be there, right? No one's going to be checking and being like, hey, why aren't you here? It was like, who, India who, like Ananda who, right? So that was wonderful to be like, okay, you have to take initiative now in your journey. But I think more generally than that, throughout our lives, right? I'm still so young, so like, what do I know? But from what I've observed, we have, our spirituality can wax and wane, right? There are times where we can feel that we're like really spiritually charged and we're going on that path and we know exactly where we're headed. And then there can be dull periods where it's just, you feel a little disconnected or whatever it may be. And so I think that the way I like to think of it is Swami is always holding his hand out to us, saying, please take my hand, let's walk together. But how often do we extend our hand to him and say, Swami, let's walk, right? He's not going to drag us on the spiritual journey. That's not how it works. We have to be willing to take one step every single day or every single moment. And it's that initiation or being willing to perform that action. I think spirituality is so active, and sometimes we think it's passive. We think, oh, I've read this book, got it, done. But like, how did we put that into practice? How did you do that every single second of the day? How did you not have that bad thought about someone that insulted you, whatever it is? And so I just think that it's about choosing to take Swami's hand, and it has to be a choice we make every day. If you meditate in the morning saying, okay, Swami, please take my hand. Let's take at least one more step today, just one more. And what does that feel like? And so I feel that honestly, at the beginning of the pandemic, maybe like 2 years prior to when the pandemic started, I felt like I'm on the spiritual journey, but I'm feeling a little stagnant. Like I want in my heart to want spirituality more. And I think that as YAs, it can be really difficult to commit fully to the spiritual journey because there's the whole world in front of you and you haven't really experienced any of it yet. And you have social media now, and we have politics, and we have pop culture, and we have all these things happening in the world. And it's crazier than perhaps it's ever been in many ways. And it can be so easy to be drawn to all those flashy lights and all that materialism, whatever it is. But then the key is, well, where does spirituality fall, right? And how do you feel it in your heart? Not because your parents tell you to, or someone, reprimands you and says, you should love Swami, but because you actually love him, because you actually extend your own hand out of the want and desire that you have. And so, yeah, I prayed to Swami a lot before the pandemic started. And I was like, why do I want to watch TV right now instead of like read a spiritual book? Why do I have that? Like this TV, this show does nothing for me, but why is that the most exciting thing compared to reading a book? And I have to like drag my heels to do it, if I'm being completely honest, right? And then when the pandemic hit and like the whole outside world shut off to an extent, then the only place to turn was inward. And then all of a sudden, my spiritual trajectory got really catapulted in a way that I couldn't even, it was a lot really fast happening all at once. And I was like, okay, we're going. But it meant that I wanted spirituality for myself, not because I wanted to appear good for someone else, not because my parents told me to, but because I needed it. And so now it's gotten to the point where I don't want to have a conversation with friends if it's going to be negative or if all they do is gossip about people. I don't want to watch like 95% of the shows I used to watch. I don't want to participate in certain things that may be considered normal to other people in society because it does nothing for me. And I can't
pretend that it does anything for me anymore, right? I'm not just going to go through the motions of life to be that regular person. Let's go ahead and be extraordinary spiritual aspirants and stand out. And if that hurts, then let it hurt and keep on going. And so I feel like that's been a real blessing to have this pandemic, this moment of quietness, to be like, okay, it's me and you, Swami, and now I want it. And it doesn't mean that every day it's there. Some days I'm not extending my hand and I know it, right? And I notice that shift, and it comes and it goes second by second, but it means that more generally and more consistently, I'm realizing that like, I want to attain moksha, and that will be an attainable goal if I make it something that I work towards every day, just like we work towards a career or we work towards being a good daughter, whatever it is. So it's becoming more realistic for me to be a real spiritual aspirant.
Wow. Such a mature and profound answer from you, India. And, Swami does reassure us all the time, if you take one step towards me, I'll take 100 steps towards you. And he is always there, no matter what. Even if we are on a waning day, or is it a waxing day? One of the two, whatever the day is, but he's still there holding our hand for sure. Thank you for sharing. And let's go to Ananda, please.
All right, I'm just going to echo what everyone's already so beautifully articulated. I don't know that my experience is that much different. I think this transition that we're speaking about is such an important moment in our lives, and we could have several transitions throughout our lives. So my primary one was heading from high school into college, of course, no longer having that security blanket of an intermediary force between myself and God, right? I think the beauty of the first people who introduce you to God is that they act as a sort of binding agent or glue, which connects us to God when we're younger. And then after a certain point, and this is what India is talking about, and are we reaching our hand back out to hold God's hand, is we have to take full accountability and responsibility for our one-on-one bond with Swami. And either it's there or it isn't. And we have to recognize that that's our sole duty. And that moment for me came when I realized that the turbulence of living an ego-driven life wasn't doing it for me, to be quite honest. It's this swinging pendulum back and forth from pain to momentary joy. And, you get hit along the way, you get some bruises and bumps along the way. And at a certain point, I thought, okay, I feel like I'm doing this the hard way. And I feel like there might be an easier way to achieve happiness in a more constant way. And not even happiness, but I'm not interested in the extremes anymore. I want the center. And the center, equanimity, which might have sounded boring when I was younger, is all I want now. All I want to do is return to the center. And luckily, that's where God resides, right here in the center. He's on the extremes as well, but he's more so in the center when I'm walking in alignment with my Atmic truth. And so I just realized God is that salve. He is that balm that can soothe all those wounds from living this sort of reckless, ego-driven life. And he, like a divine mother, is here to sort of patch everything up and say, okay, you fell, you slipped, that's okay. Take my hand, let's stand up, let's continue doing this again. And so it's that moment where we say, the outside life, this world, this Maya, isn't quite doing it for me, like India said, or I'm not buying the illusion like I used to. It's not quite as pearlescent or shiny and golden as I thought it was. Then you actually start to realize that God is the true treasure, and that's the gold that you desire. That's what you're going to search for and chase after, even though it's already right here. But of course, that's that lifetime of work of diving deep in again back to the center. And so the transition is that beautiful moment of saying, I need something more. I need something constant. I want that true happiness. And when you say, to me, that's God, there's nothing beyond him. If there was, I'm sure we'd all be chasing that, but it's God. It's God for us. That's the greatest. And so that transition is a beautiful moment in which sort of our paradigm shifts and everything starts to slowly click. And the spiritual journey can start to fast track, and not always linear, nope, but it can start to move in a nice pace forward.
Yeah. It's amazing that you and India's journey started when you were 2 or 3 in diapers, and here you are as very young adults, and you sound like yogis, the pair of you. You're very, very blessed, and so are we all to hear from you. So I'm going to take a pause at this point, and I'm going to shift gears and ask Gethin to take over.
Yeah, I'm loving listening to all of your answers to the questions so far. The thing that's been great to hear is just the authenticity the truth in what you all are saying. And what makes it very meaningful is that sometimes there's a tendency for people to give what they think is the right answer, because kind of like the bookishly correct answer and that kind of thing. But I love the way you all are sharing and being honest about whether it's how do you explain Swami to your friends, and the picture question everyone's had at some point or another, whether it's in your car or in your dorm or that kind of thing. And and the fact that sometimes we feel like we feel like we've fallen off the horse, and the question is then, do we complain or do we get back on, that kind of thing. I'm loving this interaction so far. So my next question is, you all have touched on it a little bit, but it's a slightly different twist to the question. One of the concerns that a lot of times people have, especially young adults, and and this is also something that affects SSSE students as they're getting older and all, is a lot of times there's this mindset or this fear that being spiritual somehow makes you like you have to be serious. And it's like there's a seriousness that you all are laughing, but let me finish my question though, because it's because what happens is they're like, oh, spirituality means you have to be serious, and oh, you don't. To give you an example, I didn't, we grew up in a spiritual household, but we didn't know anything about Swami until I was a senior in high school in LA and all, and didn't go to a center for a few years after that. But I remember coming here to Austin and to law school, and I was picking up another UT student, who was coming to the Sai Center, and they were shocked that I was wearing jeans and that I was like listening to the radio. They're like, what? I guess they just assumed that I'd be wearing whites and listening to bhajans all the time. So with that as the context of this, when you talk about leading a spiritual life but how do you did you ever have a fear of being, either typecast as being like too serious, or what if this means I have to turn into like a Sai nerd, and for lack of a better word, no insult to Swami, but this is what a real concern that people have, that am I going to have to turn into a Sai nerd to follow his teachings and all. So did you have that issue? How did you get over that issue? Because I think this is a big concern that a lot of people have. So, I need to pick on someone. Ananda, I'm not going to let you get off the hook, because you can't say, yeah, everyone else has already covered this first. So I'm going to start with you. Let's go Ananda, then Meghna, India, Sumant.
Perfect. Okay, I appreciate that. I'm in the hot seat. This is a great question. I laugh only because I don't think I was ever concerned with being called or seen as a quote Sai nerd. But I will say seriousness is a real thing that we have to consider on the spiritual journey. And I think growing up, I certainly was under the illusion that in order to be perceived as a true spiritual aspirant, that meant I had to have the most serious stone face you've ever seen, absolutely silent, never spoke. Actually, for a long time, no one ever saw me smile or laugh either at center. And I didn't even talk to other people in my own SSE class. I was so convinced that that was not what we were here for. And then I woke up one day and realized that humor and I think laughter and smiling are so essential to what we do here on the spiritual path. And what's funny to me is that every sort of photo or picture or painting I've seen of an enlightened soul, I'm definitely thinking of the Buddha, is they're smiling from the inside out, like this constant permanent smile on their faces. And so it's so funny to me that I feel like I underappreciated smiling, laughter, and humor for the longest time, because I often feel that humor in the face of what we might perceive as chaotic or devastating life events is a sign of deep spiritual grace and understanding and acceptance, because you're essentially saying, I understand what's happening, but I do align with my divine truth. And I know I'm more powerful than this and nothing can affect me. And so to meet something with laughter, true laughter, not a sort of sarcastic, bitter laughter, ironic laughter, true laughter of this is funny, because the play itself, the melodrama of Swami's play, to me, it's interesting and it's beautiful, but it's also hilarious. And so I think that is a sign of deep spiritual wisdom as well that we can't overlook. And of course, if people are worried about becoming Sai nerds, just realize that the closer you become to Swami, the better you'll be able to relate to other people around you. So it's not going to make you a social recluse or some sort of person who is unable to connect with humans, but I think quite the opposite, that once you start to see others as an extension of yourself or a loving mirror, which allows you to see yourself with more clarity, you will treat them as you would like to be treated. And there will be no distinction or division. There will be no judgment. There will only be compassion and love. And so you should, ideally, I think, be much better at relating to others, and you would be a high performer in the social circle, as that's what I would imagine. I think Swami was definitely beautiful to witness in social circumstances because of his grace.
So thank you, Ananda. I am very happy just listening to you speak. I think one of the things that I think is the most important to remember is Swami always says, be happy, 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 right? And 3 times for a reason, right? Because it's that important. And I think as same as Ananda was saying, every person I've met who feels this connection with Swami, they have this life to them. And it's this just like, it's this undescribable energy that's just full of light. And it's so, you want to be closer and closer to them because the way that they look at life is so stable, so constant, and just so a genuine joy. And I like to think the reason for that is, so I wear this bangle, which is like an ocean wave. And it's because of something that Swami says, right? Like, you have come from God, you are a spark of his glory, you're a wave of that ocean of bliss, and you get peace only when you again merge with him. And it's this idea that we are all just like tiny ocean waves, and everything that happens in our life, just small ripples. And when you zoom out and you look at the larger ocean, right? It's something magnanimous, something you can't even contain in your hands. So why would you ever let something so small affect your own beauty and affect the beauty that you see in everything? And I think when Ananda and India and Samantha were also saying, like, sometimes you zone in and out, right? Of like the really intense spiritual moments, and then you back out, and then really intense, and then back out. And that's also like a form of a wave, right? But when I feel really connected to Swami, I almost feel like I'm walking on water, and everything else, it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's that, like, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Nothing can touch you when you feel how powerful you are in and of yourself. Like, it's the whole, like, I am God, I am God, I am God. And I think that's why you can't be close to Swami and be sad. That's so reductionist of me to say, but I mean it. Like, when you have met Swami, when you know of Swami, how could you be sad? How could you be sad when you know the entire power of the universe? Like sometimes I sit with that own thought when I'm feeling irrational emotions, and I'm just like, you are so silly. And also, like, half of Swami's beautiful personality is his humor. And I think that's an important note to end on. He doesn't call everyone Dunapota for no reason. But yeah, that's kind of my answer.
Oh, this is wonderful. I'm going to just piggyback off of what I've already heard. That's not cheating, but this is the most exciting thing about Swami for me, always growing up, whether you see him in person or you see videos, especially when he was younger, was how mischievous he can be. When he gets that little glint in his eye, like right before he's about to tell some joke or do some trick, right? That's almost like, oh, this is God. Like, this is amazing. And that's when, like, the Krishna avatar comes out and we're like, yes, like, play jokes on people. You should laugh big, right? Like, you really should. We shouldn't be like, shh, don't talk, don't laugh, don't have fun. Like, we must be serious. Like, sit down, just focus. Like, you're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to make sure that you share love and happiness with other people. That's all spirituality has really ever been about for me. And, you know, even with Swami, he said, when I'm amongst women, I become a woman. When I'm amongst men, I become a man. When I'm with children, I become a child. He's so socially well adjusted to be God, right? So, like, as we think of like a Sai nerd and someone who's like in the corner as life happens, not engaging, Swami was engaging with so many people across the world, like across cultures and languages. We could only hope to be that well adjusted as Swami, right? And so I feel like he was always the life of the party. Like, I always think he is. God is the real celebrity. People are always following other humans being like, oh, what is Brad Pitt doing in California right now? Like, look at Swami. Like, I could watch him walk all day long.
because he was so intriguing and he was so full of life. And that for me, like, that was it. That was it. And then just one other story I want to relate this to. I'm in a YA book club and we're reading the Ramakatha Rasa Vahini, and we just finished chapter 12. Shout out to all my friends out there, where Rama tells Sita that he has to go into the forest, into exile for 14 years. And her first reaction is that she laughs. She does not cry. She does not go into all this agony like so many of the other characters we see do. She just laughs. And then she convinces him for the rest of the chapter why she has to go into the forest with him to face all those demons, all that hardship, because she said that would be her greatest joy. So anytime someone can laugh, especially when the wave of life, right, as we've been talking about, the peak of that wave, when things get really intense and you're like, wow, is this real right now? The more melodrama that comes into our lives, if we could laugh as our first instinct, and not like Anana said in a bitter sort of like, oh God, what's going on type of way, but in a way of like, this is just what happens, right? Like, don't put a value judgment on it. There's no good or bad, just be. And that's so happy, I think, that's really what spirituality is.
I guess I have to piggyback of all the three of you here. So I agree with what everyone has said so far, and instead of just sounding repetitious, I wanted to share some of my own experiences with actually, not being called a Sai nerd, but pretty close to that. So in high school, I was always been a kind of a silent person. Yeah, I didn't really talk about my personal life. I just did my thing and my group of friends. So at that point in my life, I wasn't really showing that I was a Sai devotee per se, right? But when I moved to here, like I said, I made that conscious choice of actually being in the Sai fold, not just following my parents. But with that also showed it to the people around me. And especially my roommates, like Megan already shared a story of hers. I live in Miami, which is a culture dominated by Latinos. So I used to live with 6 other Colombians in my house, and every single week when I used to walk in and out to satsang, I used to wear my full whites. And every single week, they were making jokes. Oh, are you gonna get married? Are you gonna go to a party? What are you doing every single week, right? And in the beginning, it kind of bothered me. Because I didn't know how to respond to it. I didn't know, should I say something that I don't like it, or should I just ignore it? Because then eventually they will stop. But of course, they didn't stop, because Swami wants you to learn a lesson, right? So after some, I don't know, weeks or months had passed, I just started laughing with them. I started sharing their happiness, their jokes kind of with them. And while I started doing that, it's not that they changed, it's that my perception towards them fleeing me changed. And I actually started seeing their joy in seeing me every week in whites. And I started enjoying with them the way I was dressed, kind of. Right? So it might be socially uncomfortable at times, but it's not necessarily that you're trying to fit in, like one of you already said. Maybe it is sometimes good to be extraordinary in some points and embrace it. And that is the point where you'll really start valuing the things you're actually doing as a spiritual aspirant. So that's just a small experience of my own that I wanted to share.
Thank you all very much. I really enjoyed those answers. The other thing that I liked, and one thing that I didn't hear any of you say, which I'm going to point it out because it's important in its absence, was none of you said anything that sounded like judgment. And a lot of times we spend so much time, thinking about, one, how other people are judging us, but then there's sometimes this danger of thinking that, hey, I'm on the spiritual path here. And there's this like sense of, it's not just joy, but sometimes if we're not careful, we can also radiate a sense of judgment that, hey, I'm putting this into practice in a way that you aren't, and that kind of thing. And to hear none of that and not a trace of that in your answers, it's so nice to hear that. And I think that's part of what makes the joyful of, when Swami does it, he never has that judgment that goes with it. And I think the fact that you all were able to share that, and how you do it different, but without then. And at some point, fitting in is or isn't important, but other people may find their own balance in their own way. And the fact that you weren't judging any of that and all that, I thought that was really nice. You may not even notice it. That wasn't part of your answer, but I noticed it as listening. I wanted to point that out to you too. Okay, next question for you all. Okay, the topic of today's panel, obviously is the idea of finding purpose in real life, and IRL, as we'll write in text to people and all. So let me ask you this: how have you found purpose in your life so far, and how has that changed over time? And I know each of you has kind of alluded to the fact that we're still young and whatever point in life that you are. And I think that's important because, as I'm sure you'll probably talk about, that whatever that purpose is changes over time, and being able to, recognize that is important too. So I guess I will do, this time I'll start with Meghna. I don't think you've started first yet, have you? So let's go to Meghna, Ananda, Sumant, India. And I'll try not to interrupt because my wife points out that since I'm a lawyer, I have a tendency to sound like I'm cross-examining when I'm questioning. So I will try to not do that and just let you all go.
I would appreciate any cross-examination. It is completely welcome. No, this is a great question. I love this question, which is why I was so happy when Gitanti reached out about this panel. Meditation has been the single greatest tool for me in the past few years for finding my purpose. I like to think of it like, in this reality that we live in, it is really hard to parse out what matters and what doesn't matter if you never take a minute to turn inward and kind of, Phyllis Crystal has this idea of the higher C, right? Or the idea of a higher consciousness. And as cliche and as probably confusing as it sounds, maybe if you haven't experienced it before, hearing your own consciousness and hearing a higher consciousness is reason enough to do anything that comes your way and comes into your mind space at that time. And I'm like a firm believer in the idea that not a blade of grass moves without God's direction. And I think not a thought crosses my mind without God's intuition. And that's really, really important to me. So this idea of purpose, right? And I think even when we were preparing for the call, we talked about what's your purpose? Like what is, why are you born? And I challenged that and I said, I don't think it's one thing. And I don't think it's one thing for anybody. And I think the way that you simplify that is same way we take large tasks day by day. Take your purpose day by day, right? Take your purpose moment by moment. If you take that 10-second check-in in every situation you're in and say, how can I add love to this situation? How can I add my passion? How can I add to my own character? And what is it that I'm supposed to be learning in this moment? From personal experience, things just become clearer and clearer, and your toolbox of the Swami's values becomes better used in every instance. So I would say, don't burden yourself with this idea of a singular purpose that is dawning upon you. Do the small things first, and the bigger things will come.
I agree as well. I think of purpose in terms of dharma and sort of like our divine duty in this life, right? And on a grand scale, perhaps we can all agree that we're here to recognize our divinity and to act from a place of love, right? That's the larger idea at play, which we are all very hard at work at, I'm sure. And then if we think about sort of purpose in terms of a career, right? Like what we do day to day in our life, which I know lots of YAs are considering, I think it shouldn't be too difficult to understand that Swami has imbued us with different gifts and talents in this lifetime, right? And oftentimes that can give us a clue as to what we're meant to do in this life in the physical sort of worldly sense. And of course, not every passion or hobby will manifest into a career, but oftentimes if you're gravitating towards something, that's God telling you, this is what you're meant to do. I'm going to work through you in this way in this life. And also important to note, and this is not easy to practice all the time, is that we can't follow somebody else's dharma. And we also can't follow the dharma that other people wish that we had. We have to sort of sit in satya. We have to sit in truth, even if it's uncomfortable for others or unpopular or uncool. What we have to do has to be done. It's really quite that simple. We can't all do one thing, right? Like we're different cells of this master organism. So we can't all be the hands because we need feet, we need a face, we need a torso. We have to do our separate jobs so the full body can work, so we can move through life as the complete God body. But we can't do that if we're all vying to be the neck or all vying to be the shoulder. So we have to follow our duty. And also keeping that in mind, no matter what we do in life, it's not nearly as important as the energy and intention that you imbue into your actions. So if you are, someone who has the privilege of being a garbage man, if you imbue that with love, if you do that with the utmost respect and honor every day, you will change lives, even though someone might say, well, he's just picking up garbage. Not really. I mean, I know lots of garbage men that have incredible relationships to entire neighborhoods and they're like mayors of their city. So no matter what you do, it doesn't really matter so much. Don't fixate on what it looks like on the outside. Really focus on why you're doing it to begin with. And if that love is there, if that purity of intention is there, the effects of what you do will be much larger than anyone can anticipate, essentially.
Yeah, I think what both of you have said that echoes so much with what my answer is as well. Like personally speaking, I think if you're in the Sai fold, you follow Swami's teaching, we have read, we have heard, we have seen what the true purpose is in life. The problem is to actually realize it sometimes, especially when a person is speaking. You know what it is, yet you don't know what it is. And I feel this life is kind of our journey into actually realizing what it actually means. And in doing so, for me, it's always taking it step by step and evaluating everything that kind of happens in my life and going back and looking at why did I have to go through that and what did I learn from it? How can I improve myself from that? How can I maybe avoid it from happening in the future so that I grow not only on a personal but more so on a spiritual level, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to reach that one goal. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. It's a long way to go, but with such a great guru with us on our side, I think we're extremely blessed to be in this position. That motivates me even more to try my best to, keep improving, keep learning, keep exploring as well. I think that's another big thing, to don't be afraid to explore different things. Not everything might work out, of course not, but that's how you will know. Because if you don't try, you don't know. So that's kind of my answer to this question.
My job is very easy, being the last person to speak right now. Yes, to all three of that. I co-sign all of that. Just to add a little dash of something else to this mix here. Today, for Radio Sci, the thought for the day, there was one sentence that really, I thought, pinpointed this beautifully. I'm going to read some notes on this. Swami said, "A teacher who instructs pupils with his eye fixed on his salary and a pupil who learns with his eye fixed on a job are both missing their vocation." So when we're talking about purpose in life, what we're really talking about is, what is your vocation? And I am going to echo what everyone's been saying, but I'm trying not to, reiterate it too much. But what we're really talking about is following your heart. And what we're talking about is work as worship. If we are going for something because of the number that you will get on a paycheck at the end of 2 weeks and that bonus, then that is not correct. And I don't say correct very often, right? I don't like to say good or bad, but if we're being honest on the spiritual journey, if we're looking to worldly and materialistic things as an outcome for what we're going for, then something is missing in that equation, I would say, And so that just is very interesting. If we're focused on a job and a career, as opposed to the worship that we can do throughout that, then maybe that's not the right job or career for that said person. And so I just think all of it, the funniest thing about being human is that we are convinced that we're just human and that we're not God. And the entire life journey is about breaking the illusion that you're more than just a body. And I'll never get over how hilarious it is that we act like we're just bodies and we're just like, mumbling around in life. But the whole point is to get back to God.
So whatever you do, it doesn't even matter really, as long as you're interested in it and you're not harming anyone or yourself in the process. That's your vocation, that's your purpose, that's your dharma. And then you do that until you want to do something else. Then Swami will introduce you to something else. But it's also about not only loving what you do, not just doing what you love, but also loving what you have to do. Because I've been in situations sometimes where I've had jobs that I did not want to have, but I had to have that job for my spiritual trajectory, my spiritual journey. And I think that's important as well, not to only fall into the habit of saying, well, I just want to do this, so I only want to do that, and nothing else outside of that. Sometimes the growing process also involves your duty, and your duty doesn't always align with your desire. And it's okay to have that as long as you trust the process and know that at the very end, it's going to take you to where you need to go faster than what you wanted to do would have.
Nice. Thank you all for sharing. Geeta, back to you.
I was gonna see how you summarized all of that, but I'm glad you didn't, because that was
Sometimes there's no need to add anything at all.
It's a beautiful answer. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so our next question for you guys is, can you share something that you do that seems unique to you and is a way you express your spirituality? And I'm going to borrow Getan's methodology here and call out a sequence. So we'll have Sumant go first, and then we'll have Ananda, and then India, and then Meghna.
All right. So for this question, I wanted to kind of go into my professional career a little bit to pull out an example from there. So as Geeta Auntie said in the beginning, I am a flight instructor, which means I do fly planes every now and then. And for my job, I think it was 2019, we had a big hurricane heading for us here in South Florida, just like we have every other year. But this one, it ended up that we actually had to evacuate and we had to fly away all the planes from our flight school. So going out was not a problem. We were flying away from the storm, but coming back, it happened to be a huge hurricane. It covered all of Florida at that point, and it was still going to be there for days. And for some reason, we had to go back. And at that point, you have had your training, you have your knowledge, you have your experience, you have everything that you're supposed to have by the laws, by what people tell you to have. Yet at the same point in time, you feel like you're missing something. And that is that divine part of it, right? The Swami for us. And for me, I only realized this after all of this happened, after I think a year or two after, when I reflected on this. During that actual flight, when I got stuck in some pretty bad thunderstorms, it got really bad. But during that time, I had so much faith in that nothing was going to happen, just because I knew that he is there with me, because I have experienced it in so many other times before, that I don't know if this is right or wrong, but he didn't even come to mind. I didn't even think about chanting his name or anything, because he was already there for me. It was already like he was already part of it. So why would I even bother to take my focus away from what I'm doing at that point, while that focus is actually already on him in some kind of way, which in this case was flying the plane through the thunderstorms. And like I said, only years after I reflected on this incident, that's when I realized that, that unshaken faith that people talk about, it comes in ways to you that you would never expect. You realize it, that you have it, because you're made to realize. You can, for me personally, I can pray as much as I want before or after, but I would have never known that my faith would have been that strong until I had that experience. And just to come back to the question of how to practice spirituality in real life, it's not so how to practice it, but how to deal with things that come to you. Of course, your daily sadhana is a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. Like meditation or yoga or singing bhajans or service, whatever your sadhana is, of course, that's a big part of it. But when it comes down to it, that is when, for me personally, it made a difference. So that's kind of what I wanted to share.
That's incredible, Sumant. I just feel like you were sort of living your faith and living your prayer constantly. Am I next? Did I make that up? Is that actually the order of things? Okay, so I'll admit I don't know that I do anything particularly unique from anybody else. There's so many of us in this world, but one way that I do express my spirituality is also through my profession as well, which happens to be writing. And what's kind of funny is that when you go to school for writing, they teach you to approach writing as a sort of solitary activity that allows the intellect and the ego to just sort of have free reign over the page. Then you produce a masterpiece and everyone loves you. And that's the goal of becoming an author, is what they try to convince you of in school. But what I learned incredibly quickly is that when you try to create with the ego in the equation, in fact, you cannot create anything of value at all, because it always ends up being inauthentic or hollow to some extent, or lifeless. And so what's really funny is that I think writing has become my main spiritual practice, even though it's sort of a career that I deeply love and I chose. It's, to me, when I treat it more like meditation, when I treat it more as a way of, let's go inwards, let's let Swami do the work, let's try to hollow out this flute so the beautiful notes can flow. When I treat it like that, then whatever comes onto the page is inherently and naturally imbued with so much more power and beauty, because Swami was the doer the entire time. And so for me, it was learning the lesson that ego is the antithesis of creativity, and that I think creation is inherently divine, because that's what God is constantly in the act of, is creating, right? He created us out of love, and we exist out of love. And so for those of us who, we all are creative, first of all, let me just say that. You don't have to be called an artist to be creative. And we all use our creativity every single day. And when we do that, we're tapping into a divine force. And to be aware of that and to honor that, to me, has been the key in my artistic practice, because I simply can't do without it. Like I quite literally cannot write. It'll be torturous. It would be terrible. I've done it before. The result was not so great. It's about releasing the desire to control the end product, because as an artist, you're sort of convinced, I need to make money off of this. This has to sell. It's going to be a New York Times bestseller. Will this story make it into that, that hot magazine, the Paris Review? If you're thinking that while you're creating, nothing of value, nothing honest will come through, nothing loving will come through. And I think that's sort of what's been ingrained in artists today, unfortunately. So it was a lot of, for me, deprogramming and starting from the beginning, saying, no, I'm doing this because I love it, and love is divine and creation is divine. And so I have to move from that place. And even if what comes out, people might call it crazy or insane, this is God working through me, and I have to honor it, and I have to honor it, and I'll find a space for this art in the world. And so it's not about, can it sell, is it commercial, the product, and how the world's going to view you. It's about, again, the intention and the actual action of being in that thing, being present in the creative process. And so for me, writing is meditative to me.
Wonderful. I think I'm next, if my memory has not failed me. So one of the things that I do that may be unique in terms of expressing my spirituality is that I act. So I participate in theater. And I do have one particular instance that in thinking it over, particularly for this panel, that's when the importance of it actually hit me. But for many years, I didn't really understand what it was. When I was an undergrad, I was in an acting class. It was my final year, and I was working on this monologue that I had spent 2 years working on prior. And to be honest, I was lying in the monologue the entire time. I didn't feel any of the emotions that the character is supposed to feel, but I knew how to pretend that I was feeling them, so as to trick the audience into believing that I was some fabulous actor. And I remember particularly one day, I'm working my monologue. My teacher gave me a million corrections on it, all of which I needed. And everyone in the class is waiting for you to turn those corrections around in like literally 5 seconds and do the monologue again. And I took a breath, and I remember thinking, okay, Swami, I don't even know what to do at this point. I've been struggling with this character for so long, and it's not happening. So you do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to stop here before I tell you what happened after that and give you a little bit of background. So the whole thing about acting that I found out my first class, and this is why I stuck with it, is that acting is the truth. It's not a lie. Most people think that when you're performing someone else, that you're lying and that you're doing this sort of mask, this different version of you, and you're hiding behind it. But really what you're doing is you're revealing humanity. You're revealing human desires and faults, and you're teaching people really moral and ethical lessons on how to behave and the actions and results that can come out of that. And so when you are playing a character, the only philosophy I really have as an actor is that I have to hollow myself out and get rid of my ego in order to adopt that character's understanding of life. Because really what it's taught me is unity and diversity. The more that you approach a character and you think, I'm not like her at all, I don't have those lived circumstances, you're never going to get there. You're never going to play that character well, right? So, and the more that you judge a character as well, right? There's that topic as well. Like, oh, how could you do that? That's terrible. Never going to give an authentic performance. The whole point is to love the person and to come to understand their psychology, the way that they see the world, and to know that if we had had any different situations and circumstances growing up, I could have easily been her and she could have been me, and vice versa. I could be anyone. And as we all know, we are all each other, right? So like we're all living out billions of lives constantly at the same time, because time is just a construct. And then here we are talking to ourselves over this panel. That's it. It's just God talking to himself through these vessels. That's all it is. And so in acting, I've realized that all I'm doing is playing some other version of self, or rather that this character, India, is just a character and I have to drop her. So after I did that prayer to Swami, I go into the monologue, and for the first time ever, I actually understand the character and I just start crying uncontrollably throughout the monologue, which it worked because that was the whole point, was we're working towards the sorrow. But when I dropped the end desire of India wants to be a great actress and showcase how great she is in front of other people, and the end goal became, how can I tell this person's story to the best ability so that it moves someone else to live a better version of their own lives? Then it got real. And then I understood, like, oh, I could be a 30-something-year-old Russian woman who's dying of tuberculosis, whose husband's not nice to her, and she's talking to her doctor and admitting all these things about her life that have gone terribly wrong. I could be her. And for 30 seconds, I was her. And then afterwards, the only thing my teacher said was, if you could just do that every single time, that would be great. And I was like, but I can't though, because Swami, you're right. He closed that door and I was like, India can't do that. India didn't do that. That's what Swami did. But it was that experience of like, I wasn't controlling the crying. I didn't stop crying when the scene was over. I kept on crying, because when you tap into that well of truth, or that real selfless love of opening your body as a pure vessel for someone else without any selfish interest in the process, then you really realize a lot about life. And that's really all I can say about that. And I keep on doing these characters so that I can understand other people and get outside of myself, because I'm not really that interesting. And I don't really think I'm that interesting, but because I'm everyone, I am ultimately very interesting. And so in that particular instance, when I like touched the heart of her and she touched me in return, no matter if the character is fictitious or real, it becomes real. They become a real being, and their heart is in the room with yours, and you become one. And it's that unity that was like, there's no difference. We're all just the same. We're all just extensions of divine grace. And that for me was very, very meaningful.
India, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And Sumit and Ananda, yours also such nice stories. Mine is actually very similar, kind of in that same vein of we are all one, or all of our suffering is one, all of our happiness is one. So as a kid, I would struggle a lot to watch the news, to hear anything bad happening in the world. And I would feel this like unsurmountable guilt in my heart that I have such a beautiful life, such loving parents. I get to go to school. I have this Sai family. Everything in my life is perfect. And how can things in other people's lives not be perfect? So I think I was maybe like 10 or 11 when I started this practice, but every day I have like a little running journal of people and places and things that I feel are suffering, or that have come into my day, or I've heard about, that have really like struck a chord in my heart where I wish things were different for them. And I write them down. And so like at the end of the day, I'll have maybe like 10 to 12 and sometimes even 20, depending on how long I've been in the hospital for, like, because I work in a healthcare setting. At the very end of the day, I construct this, I have like a nice template for letters that I write to Swami. So for each person, I chant like 3 Sai Gayatri, and then I'll write like what I wish their life was like. And I ask that them and I can share the burden or the love that they are feeling in that moment. So it's not always negative. It's always sometimes a little selfish that I want to be just as happy as them. But this is just like a practice that makes me feel really connected to everything that comes into my life. And it also, just like India was saying, like helps you see and realize a lot about life in and of itself, right? And that we're all actually living the same life, just different facets of his creation. So you guys should try it. It's a really rewarding thing to do. So, yeah.
It's funny because I'm also an SSE teacher, and quite often as an SSE teacher, I have always felt like I wonder who's the teacher. Is the teacher me, or is it the students? So I'm feeling that feeling again, Gethan.
I know you guys have been awesome, and we had so many other questions that we wanted to ask, but it's one of those things where these things, Swami says, embrace my uncertainty. So we're not gonna go through our checklist and say, oh no, we haven't covered the last 3 or 4 questions or that kind of thing. But what it reminds us though is the value and the power of satsang, and the value of connecting to Swami within, but then also to connect with each other. Because I know, especially that these days with the pandemic life and all, a lot of us haven't been to a live Sai Center in so long, and even even locally we haven't done so many things. So just this opportunity that we're getting through this retreat to to have this satsang that we're having, I would encourage anyone who's listening to say, let's continue these conversations wherever you are. And in that way, the technology that's available makes these things so much more meaningful. I'd also say this is a chance as just to encourage people, when we're doing these types of satsangs, keep your cameras on, because there's really nothing like being able to see the facial expressions and to see, instead of just looking out and just seeing a bunch of screen names instead. But it just makes it so much more valuable, the give and take that comes from that as well. So I'm looking at the time. We have about 10 minutes left, 8 minutes left. I know Geeta had a question she wanted to end with, but I wanted to sneak in a question there too. This is the bhajan question, and I'm not going to make you all sing unless you'd like to. We were just as a fun icebreakery thing, if each of you can share what your favorite bhajan is and why. And then the part 2 of that question is, if we were to look at your Spotify or iTunes playlist, what is a song that's on there that's not Sai bhajan, but what is your spiritual connection with that? But let's try to keep it short, because then Geeta has a closing question for you too. So let's just go Sumant, India, Ananda, Meghna, because that's the order I see you on my screen.
All right, so for my favorite bhajan, I don't know if this is true for others as well, but my favorite bhajan keeps changing with the week or by the month. Depends on what I'm feeling like. But there's one particular bhajan that is very close and dear to me, which is Sai Hamara, Hum Sai Ke, which is because back in Holland, one of the good friends that I was talking about, he used to sing this bhajan a lot. And I just started playing dholak at that time. And this is a bhajan where I really learned to play dholak, and I just have a lot of beautiful memories with that specific bhajan. So it's maybe not my favorite at this time. Honestly, I don't know what is my favorite.
No, you already said that as your answer. You can't change it now. Listen, India, you're up.
My favorite bhajan is Remind Me, My Lord, for the simple reason that the lyrics are so sincere that it forces you to sing it from your heart. I find that you can't really just mime your way through it. You have to sing it fully. Also, are we doing the non-Swami song that we like too, or? Yes, okay. Sumant, do you want to say yours, or?
Yeah, so I have one English song, which is Imagine by John Lennon. But also one Bollywood song, which is Zindagi Ka Safar, Hey Ke Safar, for the ones who know it. Those are my 2 really deep spiritual songs.
I'll just add that my non-bhajan song is The Single Petal of a Rose by Duke Ellington. I like that one a lot. It's very, very smooth and nice.
I'm a simple person, so I love Manasa Bajore. It was the first bhajan I ever learned, first bhajan ever sung according to history. Shortly after Swami declared his avatarhood, and to me, the meaning of surrendering at his lotus feet is evergreen, so that's why I love it. It's my go-to. Everyone on my center knows that. Probably they hate it at this point, but I keep singing it. And also my favorite non-Sai bhajan or song, it's by this Latina artist named Loli Cosmica, and it's called Sensenrere, and it's basically about our connection to the divine natural world, and it's super soothing, and you kind of feel like you're dropped inside a rainforest. So I use it to go to sleep sometimes. It's really nice. It's like a lullaby.
It's amazing. Am I next? Yeah. Okay, great. My favorite bhajan, similar to Sumant, changes every week, changes every day, honestly. Ask me in an hour, it'll be different. But right now it's I only have one message for you. Love all, serve all, the English bhajan. And just because it's Swami's entire personhood in a bhajan. My non-Sai bhajan, although everything is his creation, so I don't really like that that terminology, would be Fix You by Coldplay. Just because it kind of sounds like when I'm really sad what I sing to Swami. So.
Awesome. And the reason I asked, and this is also for folks who are listening, the reason we wanted to ask that question is because each of us, like our own Sai experience, we have to make it our own and not anyone else's. And and so then the connection to bhajans and those things, it's so important that we find our own connection. And also you're finding your connection to Swami and the world around you, because we can't be just at bhajans and just wearing whites and whatnot all the time. So this is a chance to connect to Swami, and this is an example of that. Here's the thing, we're like 4 minutes left. We just got a question from the audience. I'm going to read that out, and then Geeta, if you can ask your question, and maybe these guys can try to see which question they want to answer. Here's a question. It says, did any of you feel a conflict with being a Sai child and the world around you, and how did you handle that? And you kind of touched on that earlier when you were talking about the whole like Sai nerd type of question and all too. But think about that while you're thinking about Geeta's question, and then we'll kind of have to go short for everyone after that.
All right, so super quick. Swami says that we are three people: the one that others think we are, the one that we think we should be, and the one who we really are. It's so much less stressful when you can bring your whole authentic self to work, home, society, Sai Center. Any comments on this and advice to our YAs that are out there, and on how they can be authentic, their authentic self all the time, or a majority of the time? Take your pick. So how about we do India?
I'll jump in for the sake of time. I think that both these questions are kind of related, so maybe some of our answers will have overlap, which is good. Just totally lost my train of thought as I said that. That's wonderful. Being our authentic selves. Yes, Swami says that. He said, like, come to me when you have like your worst thoughts, when you're at your lowest point. That's the you that I want. So anyone who's thinking that Swami wants some Sai nerd version of them, some perfect angel who never utters a word version, and is struggling to have so many different versions of themselves depending on where they're at, I say drop the performances. Not easy to do, but recognize when you are performing and why, and probably it's fear of judgment. Try to release that fear, and then just move from your heart space. Like I always say, if you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, there's nothing wrong. You just be who you are, and that's your authentic self, and that's the healthiest way to live your life. And Swami will take you any way, shape, or form. He loves you regardless.
Just unmute yourselves, guys, and
I will. Yeah, no, I will jump in right after India. Yes, exactly. The more that you stop lying to yourself, the easier it'll be for you to actually see what you need to work on. And I think the idea of we have these three selves, the ultimate is to merge those three into one. And you can only do that when you have practiced self-awareness in such a way that you see all the discrepancies. And whatever your sadhana is, whatever your practice is, to see the truth of who you really are, what your thoughts are, do more of it. That's really all you can do. And in terms of the conflict between our world and the Sai world, there's only conflict because you're creating it, because you're deciding to be a different person in center and outside of center. And if there's conflict, there's something that you haven't resolved. And it's personal for what it is for everybody. But do what you can to figure it out. And Swami is not going to leave you while you're doing that.
I completely agree, like wholeheartedly. I think that, man, it's a lot to ask someone to be authentic and show up fully, knowing very well that they might get judged. There might be repercussions for that, but it takes immense courage and strength to do so. But that's why we're here. That's why Swami's our best friend, he has our back the entire time. I mean, he's the only person whose judgment or thoughts or validation, if we have to seek anyone's, let it be God's. And he's not doing any of those things. He's just here giving endless love. So there really is nothing to fear. But we do ourselves a grave disservice if we compartmentalize different versions of ourselves according to our environment. Every environment is holy. Every environment is sacred. So we can't hide from ourselves or the world, because then we can't see ourselves with clarity. And then we can't actually shed what doesn't service us to move towards our ultimate goal of alignment with God. So it would behoove us to show up fully, knowing that there could be repercussions for that. But we have to be honest, because without Satya, we have nothing. And that's why that's Swami's name, Satya, right? We have to hold to the truth no matter at what cost. And so I think what you guys said is absolutely true. Realize that love should be the catalyst for everything, and we'll be received with that too.
So, is there anything you wanted to add in like half a minute? Because otherwise we're at 2:30 right now. So
I'll just quickly add, when we went over the questions on Wednesday, it was funny. On Friday morning, I was listening to a satsang about the Sundarakand, a chapter of the Ramayana, and there it was highlighted how Sita Ma was also explaining this whole quote of you have three separate persons, and it was just so amazing to me how Swami has made it so easy for us to understand these lessons, and I think that's just something we should appreciate. I had a lot more to say, but that's it.
I know. I'm sorry to cut you all short. We've really enjoyed this. Thank you all for being part of this panel. Geeta and I had wonderful times. Thank you, Meghna, Ananda, India, and Sumant. We have loved this. We wish we had more time. What we would like to do is, and for anyone watching, if you have questions about for them or questions about young adult activities, please reach out to us. And go to the global, the SSSGC USA website, and we can answer. And there's so much more we can talk about the young adult program, but we'll have to save that for another time. We want to be respectful of your time. So thank you, Swami, for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for watching when you could have been doing anything else on a long weekend. And now we will transition to closing prayers, closing remarks, bhajans, and the arti. Thank you all. Sairam.
Buddha Mahavir Yeshu Sai Buddha Mahavir Yeshu Sai Vahe Guru वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा अल्लाह येशु सतगुरु साई गीता वेदा कुरान हो साई तन में साई मन में साई रोम रोम में साई साई वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा वाहे गुरु बोल मनवा बुद्ध महावीर येशु साई
कमल नयन प्रभु कमलापते कमल नयन प्रभु कमलापते कमल नयन प्रभु कमलापते कमल नयन प्रभु कमलापते कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलेश्वर प्रभु कमलानाथा कमलेश्वर प्रभु कमलानाथा कमलेश्वर प्रभु कमलानाथा कमलेश्वर प्रभु कमलानाथा कमलनयन प्रभु कमलापते कमलनयन प्रभु कमलापते कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलासन प्रभु कमलाकांता कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलनाभ प्रभु कमलारमणा कमलेश्वर प्रभु कमलानाथा 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 कमलनयन प्रभु कमलापते
तुम हो अनाथ नाथ भगवान, तुम हो अनाथ नाथ भगवान, तुम हो अनाथ नाथ भगवान, तुम हो अनाथ नाथ भगवान। ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान। माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो, माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो, माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो, माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो। भक्त सखा भगवान, भक्त सखा भगवान, दीन सखा भगवान, दीन सखा भगवान, भगवान 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 सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान। तुम हो अनाथ नाथ भगवान, तुम हो नाथ भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान। माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो, माता पिता गुरु बंधु तुम हो। भक्त सखा भगवान, भक्त सखा भगवान, दीन सखा भगवान, दीन सखा भगवान, भगवान 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 भगवान। प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान, ओ साईं मेरे प्राण सखा भगवान। तुम हो अनाथ
गोविंद मुरारी गोपाल गोविंद मुरारी गोपाल
మీ చింతలెల్ల బాపికొన మనరాగ శివ 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 అనరాగ మీ చింతలెల్ల బాపికొన శివమెత్తి జగమంత తిరిగేరు ఓ చిత్తమా నీకెంత సిగ్గులేదు
ఓ చిత్తమానేకెంత సిగ్గులేదే
అవని సుఖంబులకు అల్లాడెడు నీకు ఆవలికి కలిగేది అది ఏది
అవని సుఖంబుల అల్లాడెని ఆవలికి మిగిలేది అది ఏది
పొద్దుబోక ఊరి వారి సుత్తులంటే మీరు సిద్ధమౌదురే కడు శ్రద్ధతోడా
పొద్దుబోక ఊరు వారి స్థుతులన్నా మీరు సిద్ధమౌదురే కడు శ్రద్ధతోడా
ముద్దు ముద్దుగాను భగవత్ ముచ్చటాలు చెప్పు వెళ్ళ వద్దికగా నుండరేల ఓ చెవులా
ముద్దుగాను సాయి ముచ్చటలు చెప్పునప్పుడు బుద్ధికగా నుండరేవో చెవులారా
కనిమాలు సినిమాలు పలుమారు మీరు చని చని కనియును తనివి
కనిమాలు సినిమాలు పలుమారు చని చని కని నన్ను తనివి
క్షణమును దైవ సన్నిధి నిలువగా కనులారా కడు కష్టమతే
క్షణమును దైవ సన్నిధి నిలువగా కనులారా మీకు కడు కష్టం
శివ 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 శివ
శివ శివ శివ శివ ఎనరాధా శివ 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 ఎనరాధా శివ 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 ఎనరాధా
भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् अशीमवहु वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टाहमय शतशाय वहिष्ठायशि नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि श्मा इस्राएल अदोनाय एलोहेनु अदोनाय एहा अदोनाय एहा Adonai Echad. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. 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 Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhavantu samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. Samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring you joy to every soul that is alive. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring you joy to every soul that is alive. Samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. Samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring new joy to every soul that is alive. Samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. Samastaloka sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring you joy to every soul siempre